but we'll deal with a kind woman that works in Wendy's on the fry line. In other words, we're not concerned as much as how much money a woman makes. You know, if she's a good woman, we'll accept that. But a woman in power, she's not gonna take that guy behind the fry line.
This is Renee Meyer, and thank you for joining me for another episode of For a Brother's Ear. Today, I'm thrilled to have as my guest four mature African American men between the ages of 65 and 75. And today we're going to be discussing a myriad of topics, whether it's aging, health, relationships, politics, etc. So sit back and enjoy the conversation for Brothers Ear. All right, so why don't we, before we get into the conversation, why don't we introduce ourselves? I'll have you introduce yourself. So let's start here with Al.
Okay. Albert King. My journey started in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. That's where I'm from. Went to Fort Hamilton High School. Went on to the University of Maryland. It all took place playing basketball. That's what I was doing with my younger life, playing basketball. So again, went to Fort Hamilton, went to the University of Maryland, and I'm fortunate enough to play in the NBA with the Nets. But my journey didn't end there as far as playing basketball. After that, for the last 30 years, I've been a Wendy's franchisee, own and operate Wendy's restaurants in New Jersey. So that's what I'm most proud of, because that was something that came out of nowhere. And I'm married, been married 41 years. So she's the boss. And we have a son, he's 28. So life has been good. It has its ups and downs, but everything's good.
And how old are you now?
And I'm 65 now, and I don't feel it, but I feel good. I've been blessed. Everyone has health problems here and there, but 65, feel good, still doing the Peloton.
Okay. All right, good. Anthony?
Anthony Fickling, also from Brooklyn, also Fort Hampton High School. I'm going to be brief. I'm just going to say that I am an educator. I am a father. I'm a self-servant, a person of service. And most importantly to me is my intent is always genuine. And I'm going to leave it right there.
How old are you now?
I am 66, without question.
All right, Freddie?
My name is Freddie Dugard, and born and raised in Queens. Went to Thomas Edison High School here, where I actually got a scholarship to Tennessee, D1, and came out of there and went to the Department of Corrections, did 20 years there, and retired, and came out now drumming and a musician now. So that's what I'm doing. I have 3 children and 5 grandkids, and I'm 68.
Les?
All right, Lester Dickinson from Queens, Flushing, Queens. The neighborhood was named the Ville by the guys, the brothers and sisters that grew up in the neighborhood. Graduated from John Brown High School, attended college and junior college in Texas. Also transferred to and graduated from Lamar University. Returned home retired in 2016 after 32 years in the court system. Retired as the lead motion clerk for the Appellate Division of First Department. Since I retired, pretty much just enjoying life. Traveling a little bit, trying to stay fit like Albert. And have 2 kids, 39 and 43, and been married 40 plus years. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, just enjoying life.
Wow. Now, when you were in Texas, did you play ball?
I did. Junior college, Wharton County Junior College, 2 years, and then transferred to Lamar, both on scholarships. Yeah.
Now, Anthony, I know you have some children.
Yeah, I do.
How many do you have?
I have 6 daughters and 1 son. I have 2 grandkids. One is on the way. So I'm a girl dad, girl granddad as well. That's cool though. I love it.
Yeah.
Nothing like having little girls. They love you for a lifetime, man. They do.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
And I'm fortunate enough to be a godfather.
That's right. I forgot.
Got to throw that in there, bro.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We go way back.
Yeah, my middle daughter, Ayana,
Uh-huh.
is his goddaughter.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys been in touch since high school.
Oh, we as you know,
Yeah.
well, as everyone should know here, it's just not the both of us.
Yes.
Yeah, the three of them.
As successful as you are, you got to tell people we went to high school. She went to high school with us. So it's great to see not just us doing well, but you doing
Absolutely.
with what you're doing with yourself.
You know,
We have to put that out there.
So you realize we've known each other for 52 years.
It's been
That's wow.
That's a long time.
That was a long time.
Wow.
Wow.
73.
Almost forgot to mention that I do have a grandson.
Ah.
So enjoying that experience too, being a pop-pop. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Now, Freddie, you have grandchildren too?
Oh, 5.
Oof.
Yeah, 5. Starting 8 down to maybe 1 years old. You know, 2 girls. I have 2 girls and 1 boy.
And children.
Children,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. All right. So the question that I wanted to start off with really was, it may cause some reflection, but the question is, what has been your most significant pain at this point in your life?
you starting on this side.
Not necessarily.
I guess me myself, I've had a lot of challenges. You look and say that when you are in this professional limelight to a certain extent that you think that things don't go wrong. But I would say definitely the most pain I ever had when my mother passed away.
Yeah.
That's something that you really don't realize until it happens.
How old was she?
She was 64.
She
Excuse me, she was 84. She was 84.
84.
She was 84. And when you get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, they're in a nursing home, they're in pain for a long time, you know it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that, it's been 10 years, but it's still the biggest pain that I've ever felt in my life. It's like something in your soul just leaves you. It's very hard to explain, but there's other things that might have happened in your life, but I think when the person that's brought you into this world
Yes.
leaves you, it's just, you don't understand it until it happens.
And it's been 10 years since you've been
It's been 10 years, and it's still something that definitely I don't like to talk about a lot. It's just, we only got one mother,
Yeah.
and that's a pain that you'll never forget when you lose them.
Anybody
I
else?
have to say the same thing for me. My mother was one of a kind, man. And she gave me so many jewels growing up. And when I went to a funeral, I came back home. And it's ironic because I was on my way back to Georgia. And I literally fell asleep at the wheel. I mean, I didn't know. I was sleeping. And I was on the side of the road. And luckily it was a straightaway because if it was a turn, she would have been buried and I would have been right behind her. But I believe, man, she woke me up. I believe she woke me up. I didn't hear her, but in my soul, I feel like she woke me up. And I woke up and I got back on the highway. I'm like, oh, no. It could have been a double trap.
And how old was she?
85,
And how long she been gone?
2021. And in my car, I have my dad died in 2019. I have both of their obituaries in my Bison. So every morning, no matter where I go, I say good morning to them, tell them how I'm doing, tell them I'm still here to make you proud. So like you said, man, you never get used to that. That's a voice you never can replace. I have video of her that I can play sometime, just to hear her voice.
Sure.
But I feel you, man. Your mom is everything. She brought you in.
Yeah, same with me. I have to agree, you know, losing a loved one. I lost my mother, she was 60, so I consider that early. And, you know, it just, she missed so much in terms of growing, great grands. Yeah, it was just premature. So
How old was your mother?
60. Yeah, 60 when she passed. And maybe, in the 80s and 90s, maybe that wasn't old. Maybe that was kind of more in line with that era.
Oh, in the 1980s and
Yeah,
1990s. I see.
But still, I mean, no age is, when you lose your mom. Yeah, it just leaves a hole. Yeah.
Yeah, life was, a little different. I can actually remember the day I went to my mother's house Sunday, and we're clowns, the whole family is, and I was doing something in the backyard with her, and as she was coming down from the backyard, there was a brick, and she said, "Pick the brick up," and I said, "Yeah, okay," and she was about 10 feet in front of me. And I started throwing the brick at her, and she said, she laughed and said, "Stop throwing that brick," but her laugh just made me keep doing it all the way until she got to the patio. And that was a Sunday. Then that Monday, this must be like in between the cell phones and your home phone. So I came downstairs and I saw, the red light beeping on the home phone. And I said, it's probably my mother. She wants me to go to Home Depot or whatever. I'll get it. Went to the bathroom, washed up and everything. Then I listened back to it and she said, "Freddie, come down, come down." And I was like, whoa. And I jumped into the car, zoomed down. This is in July. And I just, drove about a mile down to Francis Lewis. The back door was wide open and I couldn't find her. And I was yelling for her, saw the bed, went back out front, looked for her, knocked on my neighbor's door. I said, "You see my mother?" And they said she was working in the garden in her backyard. And as I came back in the driveway, I saw a little brown, head basketball. It looked like a basketball. It was behind the shed, and that's where she was. And she was in the garden. She had passed out there and called the ambulance. And I was so used to just taking her to the hospital because she was always, at this stage, 76, she was always falling and stuff like that. People were calling me from like Macy's. "Your mother's here. She fell." I said, "Okay, be right there. Take her to the hospital. She'll get right back out again." But this time, she went in, and when the ambulance came, the funny part was that I was taking her jewelry off our regular process because I know she's going to go in, and they was going to take her to Jamaica Hospital, and my mother's, kind of last words was, "No, no." And I was like, and the guy was like, "What?" I says, "She's saying North Shore. She wants to go to North Shore Hospital because that's where all her records are, blah, blah, blah." And that's where she wound up going. But the good thing was North Shore just built a new wing, for her because they said, if we operate on her, she'll need total care. And I knew my mother did not want nobody taking care of her. So we just went on the respirator, removed the respirator. And about 2 a.m., she had passed away. So, it was just, and I tell you, that morning I woke up, got home about 2 a.m. in the morning. And when I woke up, it was real sunny. And I just stood on the edge of the beds. And, my wife then was there waiting for me to wake up. And she said, like, "What's wrong?" And I just looked around the room. I said, "I don't know. It's just something's different. Everything seems different." And that's what it was. It was almost like the umbilical cord was really cut, and it was time for you to be responsible for everything. So that was my most, turning point. She had everything paid for. Actually begged me for weeks, and I kept saying no. She wanted me to take her to go pick out a coffin, and I said, "No, I'm not going, Mom. I'm not doing that." It just took her such a long time to convince me, and I probably was the like a little kid that was spoiled because I was down there with an attitude everywhere, and she was picking out the coffin. She actually picked out what the thing for cremation because it was just a little square box.
Yeah.
And she was telling the lady, "Oh, I like this wood." And the lady says, "You're going to be cremated?" "Oh, wrong one." She picked out the inside of the coffin, had her initials put in it, and she had her outfit. You know, she even told me everything was. After she passed in the hospital, I made one phone call, and it was like she planned the whole thing. But when we did the whole funeral thing, we came home. I dropped her off. I went home. She calls me, and she said, "Oh, Freddie, just one more thing." And I said, "What, Ma?" She says, "I want to take everybody out to dinner." I said, "Ma, you're gonna be dead." And she started laughing, you know. So that was pretty much what we did. We took everybody out to dinner, you know, after her passing.
You know, it's so interesting that, you know, with your loved one passing, whether it's your mother, whomever, it's like it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
You can remember everything.
Every
Just
detail.
all details.
Oh, that I didn't
It's,
remember.
all, it's always
Absolutely.
there.
Because I also lost my sister, and then I lost my nephew, you know, and his son and wife in a car accident. So it was like 27 for my mother, 2011 for my sister, 2014 for my nephew. So it was just a constant, you know, death thing for me. And it was like every time something happened, it was like another step on the ladder for me to, you know, deal with life. Because I was pretty much taking care of all of them. Any problems they would have. You know, my sister lived in Jersey, in Bloomfield, and they had a major flood in the basement. And I wound up going out there getting the water that was at least 6 feet high out of her basement. You know, so, and then my nephew, he was just a knucklehead.
So is there, this may be kind of a rhetorical question, but is there something that you learned from losing your mother? Is there some life lesson there? Is there something that propels you forward? Let me tell you the reason I asked the question. There's a saying, an old saying perhaps, that says, when a boy or man loses his mother, he grows up.
Yeah.
You've heard
Definitely. I didn't hear it, but I could testify. You know, I followed my mother was a money maker, even though it was the three of us in a house in a predominantly white neighborhood. She bought a house, and she never kind of stayed there because she worked almost 2 to 3 jobs. So it was me and my sister I was at least 5 years old. Sister was a couple of years older than me. So we were always in that responsible, you know, mode. But yeah, I learned today how to really handle money, take care of business, you know, watching her do it and everything like that.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would just say that for me, you start, I don't know if it's mature, but the way you handle things as far as with relationships with your son, your kids, or your spouse, or just other people, you just look at things differently. When you lose your mother, we were very poor. She worked hard. She put that hand on you when she had to, or that belt. I didn't learn that. I couldn't do that to my kid. But I think that you just learn that you have to be responsible. You're like the adult. You're the one that has to take care of everything, and you have to understand what you're doing. Sometimes in life you're having fun.
Okay.
But it's not always about just having fun. You have to be responsible. You have to make sure that you're taking care of your family the right way, and you're just upholding the king's values, as she would say.
Nice.
Yeah, my situation, I was the oldest. I'm the oldest child, and I wasn't living home. And my brothers and sisters, they were still at the house. So, you know, Mom was still kind of in charge of their life. And I was, you know, living mine. But when she passed, you know, they were included in my thought processes. I mean, you know, concerns. I mean, yeah, I kind of filled her place. So decisions that had to be made, they fell on me. And it brought us closer together, you know, as a family, because, we lost Mom, but, you know, we had to go on. We had a home, and, you know, decisions had to be made, what to do with the home, you know. And so, you do grow up. And, you take on more responsibility. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to just add one last thing.
Sure.
My mom, she was very particular. She was tough, man. You said the same words when they leave you, you grow up. I had to grow up quick. She didn't play that, She prepared me for what was to come. And so, I can't say that I grew up. What I really missed was the fact that the little innuendos that she would do for me. Like when I would come in when I was younger, she was really strict. I couldn't come in, she'd get on me, tell me I'm gonna put you, just a lot of things. But when I got of age, she would not go to sleep until I came in. Because I would come in and her light would always be on. And as soon as I went in my room, I stick my head back out the door. She turned the light. But she made a point, okay, I was hard on you, but I'm gonna leave you alone now because you gotta be responsible for self. So I always remembered that, she prepared me.
Now, are you an only child? Do you have
Oh,
siblings?
I have, at that point in time, we were spread out. I was the oldest in the house as far as kid growing up. I had 2 sisters that were there with me. But she prepared me, man. That was not a thing where I didn't know what to do. I had to always ask her what to do. She would sit me down and talk to me all the time and tell me what I needed to do. This is your responsibility. She didn't baby me because I was a male. So
Right.
if it was my sisters, it was a different conversation.
Right.
With her. So she just prepared me, made me strong.
Well, I must say, you obviously all sound like responsible men.
You pay the price if you want.
Yes, well, yes, you can pay the price if you're not, but some people, and we're going to get into that later, nowadays don't find the responsibility something they want to raise their hand for.
Right.
But it sounds like you guys have and have gotten through it and continue to do so. So I at least wanted to acknowledge that. I think folks grew up in either the 60s or 70s when you were like teenagers, right?
Yeah.
And in your 20s, I guess it was at that point, you're in 70s, 1980s, that sort of thing. The question I have, and this is, you'll find this a fun question, has the world changed since you grew up?
Yeah. The biggest thing for me is, people don't talk to each other now, man. It's all about the phone. If you just pay attention, you go out to eat in a restaurant, man. The kids got a phone, the parents have a phone. They're not talking to each other. Or you walking down the street and it's everywhere. It's good technology, but that's the biggest thing for me. People just don't talk to each other. The phone is everything.
I definitely would add to that is that what we say the phone, but the phone has done great things, technology and all. And us as older people sitting here, it's not going backwards.
Right.
It's not going to change. You have AI and other things coming along. I would say that conversations don't take place. And sometimes that's good and bad because you could use the phone as a buffer.
Yes, that's right.
So it's not always where it's a conversation is always going to be there. But is it something where I look at young people? I'm in a business where I'm around teenagers a lot.
Right.
The phone has become their life. And what I mean by that is I'm in Newark a lot, in the inner city. And people believe what they see on the phone. I think that's become a problem. And you live your life through the phone. And you have to understand that what you're seeing on the phone is not always real. It's not. You can't judge your partner, you can't judge how you're doing in life by what you see in this 30-second clip. And that seems to take place a lot. But it's not going back. And we have to find a way to live with it. But understand that you can't live your life through what you see. That's the big thing I try to tell people. You can't live your life through that 30-second clip.
Right.
But I'm sorry, I'm not. How can you be in one room and somebody's right next to you in another room? And instead of going, hey, you text him. I never, that blew me away when I'm like, what are you doing? They right there. That's crazy, man.
How about your son or your daughter walking around the house with headphones on? you know, just kind of isolating themselves, you know, through because they're listening to music or, you know, watching a video on YouTube, and you call them to get their attention, and it's like, you know, they're oblivious to, you know, you reaching out. And, you know, the bedroom, the door's closed, you know. I mean, at my house, we couldn't close the door. You know, I mean, it had to be open. And, hey, relationships, respect, you know. So you ask if it's a different world. It's a different world in many ways. Electronics, I mean, that's ongoing. You know, the latest phone, the latest, you know, stereo, the latest gadget, whatever it is, it's going to be obsolete in 6 months. And then there's something new. So, yeah, it's a different world. Yeah, without a doubt.
I say one other thing I just have to say that has changed, and growing up, when you're growing up and you're at home, pops used to come home. He used to be a custodian. He eats first, but then moms used to, okay, ready to eat. Everyone comes to the table. You don't see anyone sitting at a table. It's something where I even do it now. I get my food, I might go to the TV, you might go somewhere, you go outside. You don't have that family gathering, and you have even though I didn't really want to be around my brothers or my sister because they bother me, but it's where you sat at the table and you had a little conversation for a little while. You don't have that anymore, and I think that's something that is missed by the young people. They're not getting to know their family or their friends. You don't see
So,
that.
what are they losing? When you say get to know them, what are they losing?
You're losing getting to know the person. You don't really get to know people nowadays. It's clips. It's like 30-second clips. It's even when you have friends.
Right.
Are you really getting to know them by looking at the phone? You're not having that conversation. You're not finding out about what they might like. You could text it to them.
Right.
But actually having that conversation with your brother, even if you don't want to, it really means something later on. You find out a lot more about a person when you have an interaction by verbally speaking to someone. Instead, because you know, you send those emails, you send those texts, you could say a lot or you could say a little.
Right. Well, you don't get the verbal cues. You don't get the
eye contact.
right, eye contact. You can't get a sense of their demeanor. You get nothing like that. So you don't get to. That's the part you're talking about in terms of not knowing somebody.
Yes.
So if you are, and you mentioned in terms of relationships, if everything is like a text, you're not getting like the sense of whether or not the person is even sincere, because the words themselves in a text, it's just words. They don't. Somebody can say "I love you" in a text.
Right.
I mean, are they sincere? No, you just don't know.
Right.
And I think also when you don't have the verbal cues, it teaches you how to deal with other people. You know, because growing up, you're in school. Somebody says something to you, you can kind of size them up, get a sense of, are we getting ready to fight? Like, what's happening? Or is the person just blowing off steam or something like that? But so when you don't have those things, and it's just through a phone.
But I had my sister too. So when I was in high school, she used to take my messages.
Okay.
So she used to give me the idea, like, yeah, you should talk to them. You shouldn't talk to them. She put the little paper up on the calendar, said you had this phone call. So she was like the buffer. She was like the person in the middle.
Right.
Yeah, she gave me an idea.
Right, but she's listening to the person on the
Right,
phone.
on the phone.
She's
Understanding
hearing
what they're
something.
saying, yes.
That's right.
Yes.
And so if that's lost, and you say it's not going back.
It can't go back.
Right, can't go back.
Technology.
No, we'd be
can't go
silly.
backwards.
We'd be silly. Because
Right.
right now we're so used to phones, we'd be silly not to have it.
Right. It's done so much for us in a
Right.
positive sense.
But technology,
Also.
to me, is going to destroy the society. Because
You
these
think so?
machines are taking over.
Now when you say taking over, what do you mean?
They do everything. They got, in other words, you really don't know, but they got robots.
Yes.
They're doing all kinds of things. Like you said, eventually, they're going to come to the forefront. And this whole thing with just, you can be in your house with the Siri, what time is it? And it'll tell you what time. But when that thing starts talking to you and you haven't asked it,
That's right.
that's a problem.
Or when an ad shows up on your phone that you're looking for something, 30 seconds later, an hour later, an ad pops
That's
up.
right, that's
But there's a lot behind the scenes happening. That is
Right,
true.
right. Well, that's the algorithm because it knows exactly what you're searching for, what you've been interested in, what product you're looking at.
Okay.
But and so of course it's feeding into a want, not necessarily a need.
Right.
It's just feeding into a want, and that's obviously an advantage for people who are in the retail business, I guess.
Well, I was gonna say, how often have you been shopping and you go to the store, Best Buy, you know, you leave the store, you get home, and boom, you're flooded with ads from
Yeah.
Best Buy.
That's right.
I don't know, I feel like an outcast here.
Why is that?
I mean, I understand technology, and I'm glad my kids can take a school bus and not a horse and carriage, because we can go back all the way and just see how things evolved and a lot of things for the better. And even with my children, we sat down and had dinner until they got more involved in high school. So they were, my son played football, my daughter was in a step team, so our things had shifted in terms of having that time. But when they were very young, elementary school especially, we sat at tables, we had a eating time. I was the cook, because my wife then was working 3 to 11s, and I'm homes with the children, so I pretty much did the cooking and homework. They had steps. They were a little different, in the sense of that. But even with technology, I mean, I remember getting one of the first cell phones in Radio Shack. They were like just starting to do this thing, and it was so expensive. You didn't want to make a call, because of how much it would cost. I don't remember when my children started getting the cell phone, but it was good for me because when they started hanging out, especially in high school and stuff, and my curfews worked. They knew to be home at a certain time. One time, my son told my wife then that he was going to spend the night, but I'm up, like you said, waiting for my son to come home with the car. And I noticed he looked at the clock, and it's like 4 in the morning, and he's not here. So I only had to do a question mark. That was it. Once they got used to the question mark, it meant everything: who, what, when, where, and why. But my son immediately called me and said, "Dad, Mom didn't tell you I'm spending the night at Bobby's house." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, no, she didn't tell me." But at least I knew where he was. Technology, even for me in the studio, as I'm looking at all of this stuff, it boosted how I record now in a better way too. So,
Well, I don't think anybody's objecting to the technology. I think the technology is definitely necessary.
yeah, like
Absolutely.
you said, it's right. It's.
Right.
I was just listening to a thing on the reel, and it was showing how they have the autonomous truck drivers now, and they're testing it, and they said in about another 10 years they're not going to need truck drivers. I even saw somewhere in Japan where they made it into a game, and McDonald's, you was able to pickles, just press a button for everything you want, and then watch them make the burger, have it wrapped up, and and technology is making you say, "Wow, let me play the game at McDonald's and watch them make my hamburger." So what's that going to do? Take almost the lowest part of the jobs away in terms of young people being able to work, because we worked at all of the chains during summer break. Everybody went to Jack in the Box and got a job, because we knew that we could get a job at these chains. But today, where adolescents work there or high school, now adults are working there to really, raise a family.
Right.
So the technology is going to be, different. I just think there's nothing we can really do about it.
No, I think we agree. I think it is a blessing and a curse.
I'm learning how do you roll with it? How do you make it work for you? So even I tell young people today, technology, Google what job is going to be good in 10 years. Because that's where you need to put your energy in.
Right.
Don't go to college and just go for, the arts. Go there and really learn, some technology or whatever you think is going to be, good for you in 10 years.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, like you say, technology is always improving. So even if they Google and say what job is going to be good
Yeah.
10 years from now,
Yeah.
that could change like next year, if not tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, I remember when I was in college, my roommate, when she came to college, she wanted to major in French, which she did because she envisioned herself as an interpreter at the UN. And so she was going to study French, which she majored in French. And then her father says to her one day, "What are you going to do with that? You should major in computers," because at that time, this is '70s. At that time, computers was the big thing. And so, she listened to her father and she changed her major to computers. And she went into computers. And so what happens is, right, we have this idea that we think we know, we want to plan ahead. And you're right, the technology is there. That's why I say it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Because one, it's a blessing because we're used to it, now we need it. We couldn't work without it in our various professions. But it's also a curse because you lose something, right? You lose a little something. And when you ask the question, how do you deal with it? How do you
Right.
handle that?
Right.
And that becomes the question. How do you, because we're all of a certain age, so it's, we may have more discipline and maturity perhaps, I don't know, in terms of being able to put the phone down,
Oh, I do.
but not everybody, and certainly not young people,
Yeah, that's right.
right? So how do you instill that? You've got adult children now, so that's probably, I don't know if that's something you can go back to, but you got grandchildren,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you want,
and when they go out, the grandkids at 2 years old or something, in order to keep them quiet, parents give them the phone to play games.
at 2 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think about that?
And they can do certain things. I think it still is a blessing and a curse. Keep them quiet so you can eat one. But the other thing is, are they gathering some type of skills, motor skills, from being able to do these things? Because they play the games better than I could even think about it. They know how to, hit things to get. And like you say, it might be more important for them to be familiar with it because the library started teaching seniors on how to just work on the computer,
Right.
so that they can catch up, pay their bills or find out information. I love it because I've been called an autodidact, and because of that, I'm
Now,
always
you may use a big word that everybody may not know, so you got to explain it. Autodidact.
yeah, autodidact is I learned through reading, not really as much as school, but because of that, I love finding information that somebody can talk about. When did Albert King play? Boom! I got him right there, and I can tell him more about himself sometimes because I can do stuff like that. So it helps me now. I understand more about that person.
That's the back to the blessing. Because have you ever been out in a situation in a restaurant, somebody says, who was so and so? Who was that actor? Who played that?
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
Google it.
Yeah.
Somebody says something,
Yeah.
and you say, no, that's not right. And yes, it is right. No,
Yeah.
it's not. And somebody Googles it, and you get the right answer.
You get the right
Whereas
answer.
when we were coming up, guess what?
Had a
You had
Debate. Conversation.
because
Yeah.
you couldn't
Yeah.
get the right answer right away.
Right.
As a matter of fact, my friend Bill tells a story about being in a barbershop, guys kind of arguing about something,
Yeah.
and one guy goes home and gets this encyclopedia and comes back to make his point.
Yeah.
Right.
But now you don't need to leave.
Yeah, you can.
It's
get
right.
that-
It's right there.
It might stop a lot of domestic violence.
You think so?
I told you. Wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. So now the question becomes, I want to focus a little more in terms of us as a people. And so the question is, how has the world changed for Black people since we grew up?
I think that's individual. For
Okay.
some people, it's been major. For other people, it's stayed the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to make up your mind what you want,
What do you-
Choices.
regardless of what's going on.
Choices.
Yeah, you have to decide. First of all, you gotta know who you are, and then find out how do you manipulate through this madness. Some people can do it, some people can't. That's just the reality of life, man. And
Now, when you say madness, let's be clear. What are you talking about?
every time, well, just watch the news.
Yes.
I mean, I stopped watching it.
Yeah.
It's, what's uplifting? I mean, at the end of the show, they'll show you something that's, uplifting.
Mhm.
But for the whole 25 minutes of it, 30 minutes, you're talking about this, that war. That's pure madness, man. You just sit down and think these people in other parts of the world, their existence is unbelievable. We're here. We live in a whole different reality.
Right.
That's crazy, man. So you have to find your own way. Whatever you want to do to make yourself better. I know that's what it was for me, because I knew how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make up my mind quick. And like you said, you have challenges, but they don't really realize how powerful making up your mind can be. Once it's set, you can make your reality whatever you want.
So would you say that for you as an African American man, since you've grown up, has the world changed for you?
Absolutely.
How
I mean, when I was growing up, it was all, you knew about the 60s, you knew about Jim Crow and all this people getting hanged, and you thought about it, you read about it, you saw films about it, but you say, okay, I don't want to live that way.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it never really went away completely, you still had to, maneuver your way through it and be okay, man.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. I didn't let anybody tell me that I couldn't be better. That's it. Make up your mind. And it takes a lot of discipline and consistency to do it, because people fall off, but that's going to happen. But if you know, like Mom used to tell me, that doesn't matter. As long as you strive for that excellence, you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let what's going on around you reflect your reality.
So you're an educator,
Yes.
and so you are a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is, I imagine that going through to get to the level that you are, that you had to face some trials and tribulations as a black man.
Absolutely.
And so those trials and tribulations that you experienced to get to where you are, obviously in your younger days, your younger years, I mean, has now that we're in 2025, so has the world changed for you now as you come through this life experience of being an educator? Has the world changed? Because and I say I want to focus on race a little bit, because I think there is a difference. I think black people have a different experience. Do we not?
Absolutely. I mean,
yes.
I'm just going to say,
Yeah.
they always say, if you're a black person, you have to be twice as good. No, you just be the best that you can be. That's all you can be. Don't worry about what they are.
Mm-hmm.
You just strive for your excellence.
Okay.
It's a mindset, man.
Okay.
I would just say, me personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a different view from a standpoint of, I enjoy this conversation because usually when I have interviews or you talk to people, it's about the sports side. But I have to bring sports in it to a certain extent. I've been blessed. Sports has given me the opportunity to get out of the inner city, to go and do other things in life, in business. I live in the suburbs, but I do business in the inner city. So I have come to appreciate more of what people be talking about. I can leave my car door open.
In the suburbs.
In the suburbs. We have to, sometimes we have to keep it real to a certain extent, is that I tell these young people that the things that you're doing, you're not going to be able to get away with as you move along in life. The 10 to 15% of black people that are doing the wrong thing, making it bad for everyone else. I'll say it, and I'll keep saying it. Us five sitting here, we're not going to be on the national news. That's not interesting. But if we go and do something negative, we're going to end up on CNN, MSNBC, on Fox, or wherever it may be at. And I never really, as a black man, I have had people prejudice against me? Not as much.
Not as much.
No, because I'm tall, I'm black, and I play sports. So I have an advantage.
Now that's interesting. So what's the advantage that you have?
The advantage I have had is that you're looked upon as being more calm, more safe. And I'm not saying that that's everyone. I have a lot of white friends.
Okay.
I have a lot of black friends. But what happens is that when you play sports, you're giving, what do they call that? When you're giving a mulligan or whatever it is, you're giving an advantage.
Uh-huh.
It gives you the opportunity to go to places that other people of my race are not allowed to go in. You're allowed to do different things. And I'm 65 years old. I can say that.
Right.
My mom is gone, my dad is gone. I don't have to answer no one but my wife.
Right.
So I understand the things that are happening in life. But on the flip side, we as a people, because the question was, has things changed?
Right.
I don't think so. Overall,
Really?
in the inner city,
Tell me
city,
why. Well, tell me why.
because again, I'm talking about the 10 to 15%. There's a
I'm with
lot
you.
of hard-working people out there that are doing the right thing.
Yes.
But I think that the people that are doing the wrong thing
Mm-hmm.
are holding everyone back.
So,
It's-
you're
it's-
saying 10 to 15% of black people who are doing the wrong thing
Right.
are holding the 85
Absolutely,
to 90% of us
because you only see the 10 to 15 the majority of the time on TV.
on the news, right?
You don't see the educators.
Right.
You don't see the people that might be doing work within the community. Giving out food to people in the black community is not going to make news as much as someone stealing food in the black community. So it's always a negative to a certain extent that always brings us to the forefront.
So, based on that, that's the reason you're saying it has not changed.
It
Because the negative, whatever the 10 to 15% in the black community who are doing the negative things, that's still portrayed in the media.
it definitely is.
And so
Because
that's the reason it has not changed from
You-
your perspective.
I would say everyone up here is educated to a certain extent. I didn't graduate from college, but I'm educated. We try to do the right things in life. We work hard. That's not always what people are interested in seeing.
Right.
It's just not. I'm not saying that it's good or it's bad. It's just not what. It doesn't interest people
Let me
as
say-
much.
No, but the media, I'm gonna say this, the media, man, if your only source of information is in the media, what you see, hear, think, and feel will be dictated to you. You have that means just because I see that, it doesn't have to mean that's my reality or a lot of people's reality.
But it is reality
For
nowadays.
some-
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
it has
for
become
some
the
people.
reality.
Yeah.
Well, but there's a lot of us who are striving. And-
Absolutely.
Yes, no question.
So when I-
85%.
When you see, so you can't, I will focus on, if I see somebody, like you said, that's doing that. Like I was in education, I saw it all the time. And I pull people to the side and I talk to them, I say, hey man, what you gonna do? I said, you know something, how about being an original? Don't be like these people around you that's forcing you to be, that you're not supposed to be that. You going to, they used to call it when they get in trouble in education. You have to go before a board and they determine your fate.
Like detention or
You know,
expulsion or something.
Yeah, I said,
like
look, man, what do you want? Don't walk around here trying to emulate somebody that you know is not going to do anything with themselves. They just here. And you know the ones who have potential, and you saw it all the time. I did more counseling than curriculum. I'm telling you, blacks and whites.
Okay.
Because the poor whites, man, believe it or not, that used to trip me out sometimes because they would listen. They would listen, and then the kid, yo, what's up with that? Why you? I said, what's the problem? Because he's Caucasian. What you doing? You know, I can't, man. That's a whole nother subject.
But I
Being
want to
that,
hear what the
man.
wise men have to say about it. But I would just say one other thing, that being in the inner city a lot, mental illness is a major issue.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a major issue
And I-
as why people are acting or doing certain things too.
Yes.
I would say that's a big part.
And that's what I see, 20 years me working in prison. I've seen it all. I've seen enough of the blacks. I had what they called, back then when I started, it was called the gang. And now they had to change the wording to detail. But the gang is, I take adolescent kids out of Rikers and they clean the grounds. I had them for months. Like I was almost like their dad, their uncle. I've gotten information. And one time I took them out and they cracked me up in laughter because they would, after they get to know you as a CO, correction officer, they know you. They know your demeanor. This is how they do escapes. They watch the COs, but me being out with a group of them one time, they were picking up, and they knew if you pick up money on the ground, you had to give it back because it's contraband. So one time I'm in the truck just watching them, do stuff, and all of a sudden they started jumping. About 15 of them were jumping up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, yo, what's up? I don't run to it because I knew it wasn't nothing crazy. And they was like holding up this thing, and it was like, and they got closer and closer, and it looked like, you know, $50 bill. You know, so they was happy because what we would do if we did get the money, we would take something out and we would buy pizza for them, you know, and you know, give the rest to the city. Yeah, and but when they got to me, the inmate just said, "Look, CO, we got $50," and then he started unfolding it. It was about this big, and they said, "Got you," you know, but. Like Albert said, yeah, mental illness. Oh, you know, these kids are just like lost with direction, you know. And one kid came to me and he told me, Mr. Dugard, you know, excuse me, but you know, I got blue balls. And he said, what? I got blue balls. I said, oh man, you know, you just need to go in, do like the rest, and you know, take care of yourself. And he said, no, I gotta wait till I get married. And I said, no, dude. Go in tonight, take care of yourself. Came back the next day and said, oh, thank you, Mr. Duke. So who's not telling them these things? You know, he even told me that he grew up with a mother and a father. He had a house. He said he made a bad mistake. Me personally, before I was a correction officer, I made a decision, and it was going to be for an armed robbery. And when they came around to my neighborhood, you know, the two gentlemen that were going to do it, and they said, yo, you want to be involved, blah, blah, blah. The only thing that really frightened me was he said, yeah, me and the guy in the car. And I said, there's nobody in there. It was late at night. I couldn't even see inside the car. But the only thing I saw was this orange thing from the cigarette. He inhaled it, and when he blew it out, the smoke came out so slow and cool, it frightened me. And right there, I'm glad I made a decision not to be involved in this thing. So it's an early decision that you make. You know, just like they can do in fourth grade, they find out your reading score, and they say you're going to be in jail. They know that statistically already. So what do we know at an earlier age? And like you say, today, these kids in fourth grade are already cursing out their parents and then authority. You know, so most of their bad things is they don't. If you could tell a person today, and say, yo, take that and go in the back and sit there, and if he disagrees with you, that's going to be a problem person. You can almost tell them because they don't like authority. This is why they're getting arrested so much. I even had a kid in he was in the gas station. The cops pulled him around. He got up. He started mouthing off. Cops got him at gunpoint. I'm in the pump right over here next to him. And he's still mouthing off, saying, man, I got my kid in the car. I said, yo, dude, if you clean, you're good. Just listen. If you ain't clean, you're gonna have a bigger problem. You know, because cops ain't gonna mess with you. They got you for making a turn signal. You know, they want that. That's the whole concept of pulling you over. To me, I'm glad they kind of do that. I am with stop and frisk, you know, because it might help somebody in our own community, you know. But again, when the cops pull you over, it's a small infraction, but it is an infraction. Let them pull you over, let them clear you, and you know, if you can, they're not going to do that. Be nice to the cop. He'll be another one that you might see because he's in your neighborhood, you know. So I get it, but mental illness, yeah, definitely. That's what's going on with a lot of people right now. And why are they having this much mental illness? Is it family structure that's not there, or is it something else that they're not getting? Because we talked about the 70s. I say the 70s was the best time of my life. You know, racism was even different. You know, and just like Albert said, wasn't for my legs, I would have never got to a college. I would have never.
Now, you were a track star.
Yeah, I ran track, you know, I got into Kids Olympics at 15, and from there the high schools heard about me. I got into Thomas Edison without a test, because that was a vocational test. I would have never passed that test. I know that. And then from there, all the colleges were calling me, and that's how I wind up in Cookeville, Tennessee, and to a D1. And again, I thank my legs all the time. Sports got me into, and that's what these inner city kids try to do, but before they get there, they get into if something happens, Albert, I mean, high school to college is the most critical point. You can get in trouble. I got into a car fire. You know, even my coach told me to keep your son in. I stayed inside that whole summer, and that one day I went out, I got into a car fire.
Car fire meaning somebody set your car on fire?
No. We were car people back then in the 70s, you know, growing up. And we was actually trying to start a 1957 car. And my friend, I was priming the carburetor with gasoline. And I looked over and he's hot wiring it because it didn't have a key. And I said, no, poof. And that was me. So, you know, the 70s was a really good time. And right now, I don't know, it's a technology that's going on that's really making the world go so fast. It's like you said, today's Sunday already.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
technology is making time fly. And the news is made. You know, like he was saying, I don't want to watch the news. The news is the worst thing. If anything, the weather, but I can get that on my phone. But if it bleeds, it reads.
Right. If it bleeds, it leads.
It leads. That's what they want. They want.
Well, here's the thing, and I want to come back to something, and you raised some really good points that we're going to address, which is if we're talking about that 10 to 15% in terms of, you know, the kind of blacks and other minorities who are doing inappropriate things. That's what the media focuses on, right? But obviously, we're not the only ones watching the media. There are whites watching the media,
Right.
and they're seeing the 10 to 15% displayed on television or in the newspaper, whatever it is. And the thought becomes, if they're reading it, then their thought process can only be, all
Yeah.
of you must be doing it,
Yeah,
right?
all of us. Yeah.
That's I think the danger that you're concerned about,
It
right?
is, and can you blame? I mean, you see something. If you see a dog, I'm just saying a dog.
Yes,
If you
yes.
see a dog,
Uh-huh.
and then you see 100 more. If you see this one dog, if you see
Right.
5 dogs doing this, and you see 100 more over here, you're gonna think they're all gonna do the same thing to you. So it might not be a great analogy, but it's just that we as the people that are doing the positive, we have to do more also. I think that and again, I could do a lot more myself.
And more in terms of what?
And breaking down and trying to get to that 10 to 15% that don't want to listen,
Yeah.
Right. they're not-
that has an attitude,
Right.
and tell you to kiss my butt
That's
Yeah.
right.
in a minute.
That's right.
You bump them the wrong way, they're going to come at you. You look at them the wrong way, they're going to come at you. But still, one at a time. Just if we could just pull, because you know how it is. You have a group. You know, as a leader, there's always a leader. There's
Quiet. It's the quiet
you could look around and then there's the other one that you know that really doesn't want to be there.
Nope.
That's the one you have to go after.
So what about, in addition to that, what about there's some, I guess, younger people who have this thought that we're in this post-racial America, that there's
Yeah.
no, and I'm saying that prior to the current president that's in office, that the thinking was that we were in a post-racial America. And some people thought that because primarily there was this, first black president. And the thinking was for some people that race was kind of a non-issue.
Yeah.
But now it seems to be in the forefront. So the question I have is that for those, in addition to those 10 to 15% you're talking about, what about those who think there's no race issue? What are folks mad about?
No, they're not seeing it for what it is. They're seeing it for what it seems to be. If you look at it for what it is, then you can't make that determination.
What do you mean? They're seeing it for me.
Well, okay. If you are a black person and everything that you feel, oh, well, like Al said, you got this certain percentage of people that's doing these things. Just because you don't see it on TV, but you got people who are not black, they're doing the same thing. So it's all in what you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
It can be that perception, and like you said about you got to do more. Man, an education that's the building ground right there.
But do more in terms of what? What have we? I mean,
Look, for me, when I
Yeah.
was in school, we started groups like the Morehouse 48, where we took all the problem kids and we met them 3 times a week. All the kids we knew that was a pain, the ones that was going off the wall, we brought them in the room and we closed the door and there was no holds barred. And we tried to make them understand, you know, this is not the way, man. I mean, you can do it.
That
And then if you're gonna get in that room and you say, okay, we're gonna change. I said, you can say it, but your ways and actions have to reflect it. So if that's your man and you out in the hallway and you see him acting up, I put the emphasis back on them as individuals too. You say you want to be a leader, then check him. Don't let him just do that, especially the way they treat females. You know, that's another thing.
Oh, well, let's talk about that.
That's crazy.
But why is there so much anger and disrespect?
It starts in the home, man. You can't get away from it. If you don't have a strong home environment, then you're gonna be a victim of society. The environment you're around, if it's chaotic, what are you gonna do? If you don't have a
Some
strong
of the parents,
environment?
though, are worse than the children.
That's what I'm saying.
You know,
But if you don't have that, then
yeah.
what are you gonna do?
I mean, the kids are emulating. I mean, that's what they see. You know, that's the
Yeah.
environment they grow up in. You know, so it's carried to the street.
Like, I'm sorry, community is everything. If you got people in the community who are on the same page, you know what the problem is. Like you said, you gotta, when you see something, you know, it's nothing like when we were growing up, we got checked.
Yeah.
You wasn't doing the right thing. Somebody
Everybody's a
checked.
parent.
Someone in your neighborhood is
Everybody's
gonna
a
tell.
parent.
Someone's gonna tell us.
Yeah.
If it
That's
wasn't
right.
your mom, it was
Yeah.
somebody else.
That's right.
That's how it
It's
is.
not, that's not the way. Everybody's about self.
Yeah.
You know, but on the racism side, there's another thing, and there's a book, and I can't remember the author, called Casting. Are you familiar with that? So it's where people that have money are in this group. Albert, yourself, boom, boom, and we're now in a different, in white people of the same financial status. Where it's called Casting. They actually made a movie of it, you know, and that's the racism that it's dealing with, because
What, racism?
in the sense of a
economic?
financial, economic racism.
Okay.
So we all can group, we can hang out because we got the money, we can travel, we can go here, we can buy these things, and I don't even want to say we're accepted, but even amongst ourselves, we are accepting that you may not want to hang out with, you know, your friend that always falls asleep at the toll booth because he ain't never got no money, you know. So it's a casting, and it's a different kind of economic racism they're going. But even that, you know, and we may not get on the subject of that new statue that was put in Times Square of the
Yes,
woman
yes.
that has her hand on her
What do you
hip.
think about that? Have you
I think
guys
it's
heard about
ridiculous.
I haven't heard.
Oh,
I haven't
So
heard
there's-
of that.
there's
It's
the-
ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a statue
Yeah.
in Times Square. It's there temporarily, but it's a statue, a huge statue of a black woman. Kind of stereotypical, I'm going to say, black
Yes.
woman, with I think her hair's in braids, her hands on her
Yeah,
hip,
her hands on her hip.
and so
She got a smirk. She got an attitude, and women of our culture are standing in front of it with this empowerment, and that right there is a problem,
well, why you say that's a problem? What are you thinking about?
because it's showing the slang word. I don't need a man. I can be independent. I don't need this.
I don't know if it's from a movie or a book. I can do bad all by myself.
I can do bad by myself.
So when you say a hand on the hip,
Yeah.
one hand or
Yeah.
is it the two hands?
One
No,
hand.
Oh, it's the one
Like
hand.
this.
It's that one hand, not the two hands, not the power.
No.
That one hand.
And so what happens is you say and that's the I think they're trying to express the attitude. I think that you're
That's
talking
the
about.
attitude, yeah,
Right.
yeah, and they got it leaning back in the whole nine, and that's again, it's like a statue of showing another culture. Yeah, this is how they are.
But is that what the purpose of the statue was to show something?
It has
it has a sign
a
there?
reading. It has
does.
a reading. I forgot what it
Yeah,
said,
I
but
think-
they just did a gospel thing behind it.
Bro.
You know, just recently, you know, they
I
had
missed
this,
this
so
one.
everybody's out there celebrating this. Why, you know, should it be a black man in a suit with a briefcase?
Well, and other feedback was, why couldn't it be like Condoleezza Rice or Michelle Obama or someone, if you will, of that stature, rather than because this is just, the woman's statue or the impression is not. She's not a celebrity.
Right.
She's just,
No, she's not.
She's
She's
just a
just-
regular person. And so the interesting thing is that the feedback that has been gotten about the statue has been things like, where's the government cheese? Stereotypical black
I wonder
comments,
what it would be
racist
like.
comments.
What would it be like if they just had a black family? You know, a black male, a woman,
Well, it depends on,
and two
again,
children.
it depends on, again, on the,
Wouldn't it set a message maybe?
well, again, it depends on the posture, because you're talking about the
Yeah,
one hand on the
exactly.
hip, so
Yeah,
it
yeah,
depends
yeah.
on the posture
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
statue.
Yeah,
I'm
but
curious, who put the statue there in the first place?
oh, it's big too. It's about
I mean, who
what,
did
12
that?
feet? No, it's bigger.
Wow.
Than 12
Yeah,
feet.
Yeah,
So I'm saying, who did it?
it was an organization. I
It
don't
was
know if it's
an
Times Square
artist.
organization
Yeah,
who
Yeah.
put it there for.
Let's look deeply into it, and I bet you'll see some. Yeah, this will change their thought. You know, symbols are important.
Yeah, so that has gotten a lot of feedback.
First, I'm hearing it. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
just type it in and you'll
Yes,
see.
you'll
you'll
see it.
I'll Google it.
right. During the break, you're right.
No, you know what? You need to go and look at it in person. Go stand right in front of me.
Yeah, there's a crowd. I was there last week, and there's a crowd, people taking pictures.
Taking pictures with it,
Yeah, absolutely.
and they're doing, you know, the proud
The
thing.
stance.
Yes, this is me. You know,
Yeah.
and if you're not like, you know, educated to understand that it has a different meaning, I don't know. To me, I didn't like it.
Well, right. And so you say you don't like it, but there are obviously some
Yeah.
people who do. And there's some women, black women, who like it. It
Exactly.
may depict, them. Or
But that's who it
reflect
was
them.
for. They're already powerful enough.
That's interesting.
You know?
Enough. You ended it with that. That was interesting.
Now, what do you mean when you say that? What, the black women are already
Black women are very
powerful?
powerful. Yeah, but they can do so many things, even to the black male. But if they come out differently in a sense of overpowering and just come out with a tone that says, I don't want to be around you guys that steal and sell drugs, and carry themselves in a different way, it can change the course, I believe, of the way men think that they need to be. Because I always say that women want men of power. And power means resources. So if you just look at it in the terms of resources, money, I run a gang, then that's another thing. Anything that has power, a woman wants to be. But if she has more, well, I don't want to be with that. I want somebody that's going to college or somebody that's got a job and working. These gentlemen here are high level resources.
Well, that's a nice segue. But before we get to that, let's take a break for like 10 minutes, and then we'll come back, and I want to address that point.
You open a can of worms, bro.
If
You open.
the camera wasn't on, I really don't want to.
Thank you for coming back to Four Brothers Ear. If you're liking the conversation, please remember to like and subscribe. So I do want to pick up where we left off, Freddie. You made a point that's worth talking about. So I mean, you guys are you're like celebrities. You're tall, you're dark, you're handsome. So the question becomes: it seems like you guys are vulnerable as romantic targets for some women.
It's that intimacy stuff.
I want to defer to these three guys. I got 41 in the bill. I know what I'm talking about.
But it seems like successful men are targets now.
Yep.
And so that is, if we look in the news, you don't even have to look, it pops up on your phone. P. Diddy's trial. There's Shay Shay, his circumstance. So what do we? How do you prevent from being a target?
Well, you're not going to equate us with P. Diddy.
No, I am not equating with P.
And
Diddy.
I want to say, who is Shay Shay?
Yeah, I was.
I didn't want to go there. I might know the name. I might know the music, but I don't know the name. Unfortunately,
Shannon Sharp.
Shannon Sharp.
Oh,
Oh, that's Shay Shay. Oh, that's what I mean. Okay, Shay Shay. I thought it was like a rapper. I
He's
thought
in
it was
trouble now, right?
Well, there are allegations
Okay.
against him.
I like that because he's an attorney, an alligator.
But when you say target, what do you mean that?
Go ahead, finish your question.
Right. I mean, Target sounds to me like, the woman approached, Diddy and Sharp and
Well, here's the thing. Those allegations, I don't know anything about them. What I'm saying in terms of just you guys, you're like successful men.
right.
And the question becomes, not to everybody, but you're nice looking guys. And I imagine you approached by women, regularly, fairly.
I'm gonna say discipline.
Discipline,
Self-control.
and self-control.
You get wise. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get wise to not playing that game because I was in
What game? What game is that?
Well, I was in a motorcycle club, and it was really, being part of that, it was very fluid, in that club. You just walk, the bad boys, they call it.
Okay.
So if you're sports, you're a bad boy. Put your hands on that handlebar of a motorcycle, you're a bad boy. There's something about that draw to a bad boy, and it's again about resources, as far as I'm concerned. It's resources. And I talk to, many women that give me this information, like, they give me all of this information in conversation. So that women, and we're not talking about little girls that'll just take anything. We're talking about women and they're smart. They're not going to just go with Joe Blow. They want somebody that's growing, like a tree and of substance. I forgot that movie where they launched 1,000 ships to go back and get her. And this is a true story, Achilles.
Oh, the Trojan War.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
they built those ships just to go back and get
Absolutely.
one woman,
That's right.
and that one woman wanted to be with the king. So it's back to that again. You can even see today in our presidency, everybody saying why he's powerful. I think looks is not the first thing. It's like, what substance do you have? What substance do you have? P. Diddy had it, Shay had it, so we're going after that, but they didn't know what they were getting involved in, in terms of their temperament, especially with P. Diddy.
All right. So you're saying that, there's obviously power, success, and power. They kind of go together.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, no big surprise. It's no different than women who are powerful and successful. You're going to attract people who want to come in your space.
But for women, you got to find equal or higher. For men, well,
I'm listening.
I was gonna say, but he already got me for mentioning McDonald's. So
Okay.
So I'll mention your place. But for men, we could be of money, but we'll deal with a kind woman that works in Wendy's on the fry line. In other words, we're not concerned as much as how much money a woman makes. If she's a good woman, we'll accept that. But a woman in power, she's not gonna take that guy behind the fry line at McDonald's. I don't think he'll make fries.
No, I made fries. I worked the
Yeah,
register. I did it all.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
I think sometimes maybe that I understand when people say that, but I don't know if that's always the case. All four guys up here, we're attracted to a good-looking person, all right?
beauty.
But we all have different types. Or I might look at someone and say no, and he might say yes. So you're attracted to beauty. I think my wife is beautiful. I was attracted to her when I met her. But someone else might say, I'll take a friend. So it's something where power and money that we talked about and say that that's what women are attracted to. It might be the case in the beginning.
Yeah.
But overall, the majority of women, once they're with a man
Right.
or whoever they might be with, there has to be more to it than that.
Yeah.
But there has to be something that draws you to that person.
And
of
when I
course.
mean beauty, I mean character too. In terms of how they are inside as a person.
But you won't know that until you get to know that person,
Exactly.
of course.
That's why
you have to go by
dating
what,
is important for a minute before you. And I always say, when you start smelling the socks of your partner, how much can you really take? Because now, when you live together, you're going to see their habits, and then you're going to see what you can really deal with and what you cannot, whether it's financial mistakes or just, the way you go to the bathroom. I got two girls, two daughters, and, one of the things that, I tell them, my daughter came to me and said, Dad, this guy, he's always got a basketball. When we go out, he's dribbling the basketball, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, talk to him about that. I mean, these are young men, but is he a good guy? And she said, yeah, he's a good guy. Okay, well, have that conversation. We'll see that if you go out somewhere, does he have to bring his basketball?
Well, how old is he?
At that time, I would say late teens,
Okay, okay.
because she was not, late middle teens, she, so he's, I mean, I would do
He's
the
still a
same
kid.
thing.
Still
Yeah,
a
he's
kid.
still, we still have our hobbies and stuff, But again, I think you got to really get to know and you decide what you really want to deal with, regardless of the financial and the beauty aspect of it. It doesn't have to be ridiculous, but I think today you might want to look at their credit score. And you can Google that one real quick,
I would really love to have a conversation of would have been here when you had the younger people here, because
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been
I find
a good debate.
I find just observing,
Yeah.
it must be very difficult for younger people to really have a relationship, to start a relationship, because there's so many other things out there that are interfering with it. When I was in college, I met my wife in college. We were 17. We get together. She comes to my dorm room. I go to her dorm. Well, she comes to my dorm room. You walk down the campus. You might get some ice cream. You might do this and that. You didn't have that phone. Nowadays, when you go on a date, or I see people out, you see them looking here on their phone, or you have other things that are interfering with a relationship. I would find it very difficult to be starting a relationship in this day and age.
It starts with the connection too. I mean, the way that I know I met my wife. I mean, we were out, we were social, like you said, college, on the same campus. But how many of us met our mate by going to a dating website?
Yeah.
That would be
What's another thing where you go in and you
That
got
would
to
be
do something in 10
experience.
seconds?
Like
You
swipe,
talk to a girl. You
speed,
talk to a girl for 10
Oh.
seconds.
So
Speed
somebody
dating.
tell
Yeah,
me.
speed dating, yeah.
Somebody. I'm not joking. I'm 65. I've been around. I've been here and there. Swipe to the right means what? No, I'm being serious here. When you say swipe to the right, that means good. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know.
We're gonna get some clarity on that.
I
So
don't
somebody,
know.
we're gonna
Oh,
have
don't
some-
clarity. No one can give clarity here.
Yes.
That's sitting here.
Is that
So
what it
swipe
means?
to the right
Swipe
means,
to the right
and that
Like
means,
someone.
and that connects with the other person.
Not always. They have to swipe right too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so that's how you date.
It's like it's a
Yeah.
date. It's something
It's a date.
when you see the picture, all you see is the picture.
Swipe it to the right, and then you swipe the other 10 to the right, and then you make a decision later on.
That's crazy.
That's an expensive decision.
I mean, when you're young, you don't really know teenagers. I mean, you do what you did back in those days, man. You get to a different level, man. A lot of people mistake sex for intimacy. See, that's two different areas, right? It's not the same. Sex is an intimate act, but intimacy has nothing to do with that. I mean, I give you an example. On me, let's say you're home, right? Sitting on the couch. Your lady friend comes in. She sits down next to you. She might put her hand on you. She lays her head on your shoulder. Doesn't say a word. You don't have to say a word. That's it. She's feeling your energy. You don't have to say anything.
So when she puts her hand on your leg
Oh,
and,
no, let's say on
and
top of
put
your
her head on your shoulder,
Yeah,
you leave it at that.
that's it.
Yeah.
Because that's the intimacy.
But when you were younger, did you leave it at that?
Well, when I was younger, it
If
was
she
a whole
put her
thing.
hand on,
It was a different scenario. Like I said, when you're young, hey man, that's not what I'm talking about.
but I think men think differently too.
Yeah.
At that
Men
age,
men
yes.
think differently when actions take place.
That's what I said. When you're young,
I
you don't
just-
know. When you get a little older, to me, when it's a substance, when you get a certain age, man, I'll take that.
No, I
I'll
agree.
take
But
that.
I just think that men think a little differently.
That-
Trust me, I hear it.
It's individual.
It's just we think differently. We
As you
we take
said.
things from
You said adequately.
Oh, we just-
before you got around.
push it along.
Now, you-
One second.
Wait, so
just Elena. Leave me
So, when
alone.
you say- so if that's the case, if men think differently, then the age doesn't matter. If actions,
No, I
actions-
think the older you get,
What
as Tony
Yeah.
as Tony
Discipline,
said,
you
is
grow
that
up, mature.
it changes.
Well, this
but
is-
when you're younger, it's
Yep.
definitely different.
Circle
well,
the
this is what
wagons.
this is what the 25 to 35-year-olds were talking about when I asked them about relationship. They felt, not all of them obviously, that women were toxic. They felt
Women were toxic.
toxic.
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, they didn't go into detail
Mhm.
other than, to say that, it's difficult out here.
Yeah,
They felt what you're talking about, relationships were difficult.
yeah.
That maybe
They're acting
toxic
like
is
that
one-
statue in Times Square. That's the toxic.
But I guess what I would ask is, what were they looking for? Not that you could, when you're young, you really don't. You can't just list. When I was young, I couldn't say I want my wife to this. But what is it that they're really looking for when in a relationship? When they say toxic, what does toxic mean?
Well, toxic
Meaning that they out robbing someone? I mean, they're out. I mean, toxic means they're cursing at them.
I think they mean bossy.
I think
Bossy and loud.
Bossy?
Yeah.
I
Bossy, I've heard that, that they're loud and bossy,
Okay.
a little bit controlling,
Oh,
so.
what age group you talking?
But this was the
30s.
20s,
Okay.
30s, yeah, I know. I'm talking to young men like this, and they are. I don't. Yeah, that's what they are.
But I would say to that,
Hmm.
aren't we a little of
Men?
Yes.
Yeah,
Or
I think
are
men should
some of
be.
those things
We
should be
we
what?
should be, in a sense, in charge of the household. We should be able to make good decisions. And I don't want to use the word toxic, but we should be able to. Women have emotions, and they're a lot stronger than men. We can't. Excuse me.
I don't know about
Yeah, well, I'm just my opinion and my
Okay.
experience, and it's the way that women they're emotional. Period.
Yeah.
They might see something where they might react, and a man will not react as much. So that's what I mean. We're all emotional, but I don't mean that we don't have emotions. It's just that they are emotional. They see something beautiful. They might take it as, "Whoa, look at that flower!" And we might just say, "Yeah, it's a nice flower."
Well, women are by nature emotional.
Yeah.
Men are more logical. If you're a real man.
Well,
But nowadays,
that's
these men
that's
are-
what I was looking to say. Really, the logics and we logically we look at things differently. That's what I really mean. Again, I'm just afraid to say too much.
I don't know. I think when you say head of household,
Yeah.
it's that's.
Yeah, that's
I'm not sure about. I mean, for me, I would say that there's parity in my house. I would definitely say that. I would say that
When you say parity, what
my
do you-
my wife is more logical than I am.
Hmm.
If that's the correct word, she's more mature than I am.
Hmm.
In the sense of, I'm not talking about business. I'm not talking about the business world. Business world, I think I'm doing pretty good. But I
Great.
think overall,
And what,
I'm
give
not.
me an
I'm not going.
example.
I'm not going to be the one that is going to make the decision by myself. I've never.
And we
I've
shouldn't.
never.
And
I've
we should
never
not.
been in
Yeah.
that type.
But I wanted an
that type
example.
situation.
The business part, I get it.
Right.
Yeah, because that's where we are stronger logically.
Well, I'm not
But-
saying that. I'm
and
just
I'm not saying
in
that
the
they're
business.
not. But in terms of example, she may make a better decision on how she wants to decorate the house. She may make a better decision on the children. Mine's made better decisions with school. As an analogy, she'll make a better decision where the child should go to school. I'll make a decision and telling him you better go. The old saying, "Wait till your father gets home."
Oh, I've been there. I know.
So that
Yeah,
whole
I've been there.
expression is basically because the father would be the disciplinarian, and I don't mean belt straps and beat him. It's just something about his voice, and if the dad is not successful, the son almost looks down on the dad as weak. And this happened basically all the way back into slavery, when the whole family was out there picking cotton, and the farmer, what they call a plantation owner, would just come and decide to take the woman and have his way with her, and the son would look at the dad like, why he knows if he goes in there and he's dead, but again, the son looks at the dad for the strength, and that's what I even know in my own relationship with my 2 daughters and a son, raising them. So I don't mean nothing in terms of lack of, but like you were saying, logical thinking in certain areas. I'll still buy motorcycles, and she may make a logical decision to say, listen, we got to take care of this and that first, and then our senses will come back of that is more important for us to do.
But I would say just you learn a lot from growing up. I would say, and you just mentioned something about wait until your father gets home.
Yeah.
That's how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to a fault, that's not the way I had been. It's more wait until your mom get home.
Mm-hmm.
It's I have tried my best, and maybe in a negative sense of not being that. I mean, we used to get it. I mean, pops come home. If you hear pop, wait until your dad gets home, you're in trouble. I have, to a fault, tried to stay away from that. And maybe that has been a detriment to my son to a certain extent. I don't think so, because he's pretty successful and he's working hard. But I think the way you grow up dictates a lot of time where you're at later on in life.
So
And
we basically talking about marriage.
Mm-hmm.
The one person like that.
Mm-hmm.
When before you get into the marriage thing, if you just out there seeing what's out there, it's a whole different dynamic. Right?
Oh yeah.
And you doing that, you have to really pay attention to who you're dealing with and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you take that step to say, okay, I have my place, you got yours, now we gonna cohabit. That's a whole different scenario.
It's a whole different game. Everything
Now
changes.
you find out all those idiosyncrasies, because now it's a thing where you're trying to impress. But when you there cohabiting, man, you can't. This is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Now you find
Right.
out if I can handle being with you.
and women can handle that more than men. I just think
Say it again.
women can handle adapting to living together more than men. I think that my
depends.
wife has accepted more of the things that I do that I can't accept that she might have done to a
Right.
certain extent.
Before she got with you or when she was with you.
Well, I mean, just things that you do around the house, nagging little things that you might do around the house. Women could accept it more or put up with it more
Okay.
than men can.
When you say nagging,
Yeah. Okay.
personally, what do you mean nagging?
Okay. Let's say snoring.
Oh,
I'm snoring. My wife accepts that. She go get the earplugs or something. Me, I'm like
That's-
pushing. I pull the pillow like 10 times at nighttime just to wake her up when I hear her snoring. It's just things. I just think you put clothes around. You might lay something down. You might put the towel somewhere. That's marriage is not just about love. It's about being able
It's
to.
an understanding.
It's being able to adapt.
It's a real
You have
business.
to
think
adapt.
It's a real
It's-
It's not.
Yeah.
I think it's about compromise.
look, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
so my mom's-
when you're together for 40 plus years,
Absolutely.
I mean, you compromise, I mean, you pick your battles. When do I dig in? When do I back up?
You already know what's going to upset her, or
Yeah,
she knows
yeah,
what's going to
yeah,
upset.
yeah,
I think you as a man, you can't look at, well, I do man things. You got to be complete as a man. So let's say your mate gets down. She's the one that cooks. She washes. You got to be able to handle all of that. I'm sorry. Mom told me, hey, if she can't do it and you with her, how's it going to be? You got to be well-rounded as a man. It's not like, well, if I wash dishes and I cook and I do all those things. See, I think of it like this. Even if I wasn't with you, I got my own place. I'm going to do that anyway.
Right.
It's just benefiting for me doing it for you.
So you cook.
I love cooking.
Right. So, I mean, you don't have a problem.
No.
Right.
You just
Exactly.
cook.
That's
I
what I'm
cook for 'em.
talking
I don't
about.
look at that, but when I come home and and I'm divorced, but we're friends now, but again, when I used to come home and she say, there's a man across the street in the car, he's been there almost every day at the same time. I don't expect her to go out there and confront this person. I went out there and confronted this person. So there are certain things that I think, and it's not a related thing, but there are certain things that men do. I don't expect her to cut the grass because it's
And
more
that's a
physical.
given.
But I will cook and I will wash dishes. I had my children because she worked 3 to 11s. So I had my children when they got off from school. I cooked, make sure they went to bed.
But you did it before you
faith.
got married too, didn't you?
What do you
For
mean?
yourself.
For myself.
All those things you did it for yourself.
Cook,
Before you got married.
you did all
Well,
that.
no. Fortunately, Wendy's was open.
Oh, okay.
He's a good learner. He's a good learner. There you go. There you
And I
go.
was able to, but yeah, before.
He got jokes. He got jokes.
Yeah, but, no, I learned to cook. I'm not raised with a dad, so I was not raised with a dad. So, and my mother worked so many jobs. We had Swanson dinners, that she would leave out for us to eat, and then we started learning. My first pancake was it was a mix that it was the size of the same pan because I didn't know how to mix it correctly. So yeah, it was about 12 inches, big, but it was still good. So I learned, as time went on to cook, and So again, when I was married, I didn't expect her to cook because she was working 3 to 11. I would wait for, and then when I retired before her, I would cook, make sure dinner was there, so she can come home and eat, or the kids could eat.
Now, I don't know if you remember this at 104. Remember the home economics?
I
teacher?
sure do.
Ms. Plum?
Yes.
That's how I fell in love with cooking. Because I remember going to her class. That was my favorite class because I got to learn how to cook and I got to eat.
Yeah, right.
So, I know you remember her. She was and she had a commercial too
She did.
for Jell-O pudding.
I
back
did
in the
not know
70s.
that.
She
Wow.
sure did.
Wow.
So, I mean, you learn, there's nothing, it's something to make you self-sufficient, there's no boundaries.
Well, I think that's what, in terms of what you talk about in school, it was no, as I saw it, it was no male-female roles. It was something to make you self-sufficient.
Right.
So, but what happens is we're talking about, generation that grows up or adults in the 50s, let's say. It's like men's role, anything outside the house was a man's role. Anything inside the house was a woman's role. I mean, there were certain roles, male, female roles that were had.
Yeah.
So to your point, which is, you were not, hovering in terms of, I'm not deciding where the kids go to school. She's good at that. I'm not going to allow her to go and confront some guy who may be sitting outside.
Right.
I'm going to do that. But what happens is that, as you know, I'm a lawyer, so I do, as you know, divorces. And so what happens is you see a lot of different situations. Nothing is universal. So I have had a client who, he was the one, education was his thing. He was the one that made decisions about where his children were going to school. And he got them into the best schools, he got them into private schools, and he saw them all the way to Ivy League colleges. And that was his role, because he felt that she was not good at that at all.
Mm-hmm.
On the same vein, he was great with money. She was horrible with money.
Mm-hmm.
He was great with, knowing how to maintain and upkeep the house. She was horrible with that. So because nothing is universal.
I think we just
Right.
need to know each other's strength. Just like any team,
Right.
you know what that person is good at, regardless of, if you're a forward, maybe he knows how to do this also.
Right.
So, it's really just like, being able to not just have your chest out too far. Because I also knew a couple that lived next door to me when I was a young person, and the wife wanted to work and the husband said, no, I don't want you to work. I don't want you to work. Even though she had everything under control, she wanted her own life. She wanted her own money. So restricting her from being able to do that was a downfall for their marriage.
Sure.
You know?
I know what you just said, and fortunately, my wife she has her career. She doesn't have to. She wants to.
What does she do?
She's a real estate broker, so she's been doing that for 30-some years. And does she have to, from a financial standpoint? Probably not. We might be able to make it without that. But when I hear people say the wife wants to do something, work, and the husband says no, I've never understood that.
Right.
Now, 1950, you're talking about the black and white TV, those TV shows, you see
Yeah.
all that.
And that's
But I'm
what
talking real world. I'm
Leave
talking
the
about
Beaver,
I'm right. I'm
John
those days.
Reed,
Yes.
you know.
Father.
I just
Christmas.
never understood.
Yeah, I don't either.
I never, unless you have kids, then you're taking care of your kids. But I don't think a man has a right to say to his wife
Yeah.
or his whoever the spouse, his spouse, that you could do this, and you can't do that. I just don't agree with that.
Look how society changed. I mean, in the 40s and 50s, that's how it was. I mean, the mother
Absolutely.
was a housewife, the father went out and worked.
And the 60s.
And I think the economy, man, started to take off where it was more difficult for the father to just handle all the
Right.
finances by himself.
2 incomes is good.
So then all of a sudden, man, we started to evolve into a two income,
You have to have two people who have an understanding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I mean, if you out there as a woman and you're very successful in what you do, when you get to the door, you're not the CEO anymore. And that's not to say you can't be that in your mind, but when you step into that house, you're the mom, or if you have children, or you're a wife now. So some people don't know how to make that transition.
Yeah.
And that's when, if you don't have an understanding, that could be a serious problem.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a moment. So, in the 50s and 60s, or 40s, 50s, and 60s, where women were the homemakers or housewives,
Right.
they were controlling the house, they ran the kids got direction from the mother. Have we lost that? Because the mother's now working outside the home, meaning that it was mom who got the kids from school, make sure they did the homework, and mom was also teaching and educating the kids when they were, but dad was working. So mom was giving this kind of almost like subtle wisdom to the kids. You need to do this. You don't need to fight with Joey. You need to be respectful to Mary. It's that kind of guidance that you got because mom was home.
But see, you gotta have a woman who's versatile. She
Okay.
can't be one dimensional in her way of thinking.
Now you say one dimensional.
Yeah, which means that's all I do.
Well,
That's it.
is that the famous saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world? So that may not be 100. If I'm controlling this
So
kid.
what I meant was,
Go ahead.
if you have a successful career outside the home,
Okay.
and normally, like you said, the woman was in the home, emphasizing all these things,
Yeah.
she can still do that. She has to be versatile. So you had a hard day's work. So you come home, you got a maid who's gonna say, like you said, I have a meal for you. If I'm there 1st,
Mhm.
that's a no-brainer.
Mhm.
So when you come in, you don't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
You relax, and the kids will come to you naturally because mom is home now too. So that you can't just say, I'm tired. Let your dad do it.
No, mom can come in and mom can do whatever she's going to do.
That she
It's-
was, if she was
Exactly.
doing.
Here's the part that's missing.
Right.
Mom is at work, dad's at work.
Right.
Where are the kids?
Come home to no one.
That's right. They're the latchkey kids. So what's the
Latchkey.
kid doing for those hours when mom and dad are not home?
Well, that's something you got to sit down and talk to. Now, if you got control of your kids, hey man, I expect you to be here. When I come in, I want to see that homework being done.
Mm.
If you need assistance, I will assist you. It's all in the rules you lay out for them. They can't just running wild because they latch.
That's how exactly I raised my family.
Exactly. And again, I say we are people of a certain age. This is how we were raised.
Right.
But the young people now, they're not being raised the same way,
No,
right?
they're not.
No.
Right? So when you give instruction to a young kid now who's 15, listen, I expect so and so, you may get, an F-bomb.
Pushback. Yeah.
And I have represented clients whose kids have cursed them out in front of me,
Yeah.
and I'm in shock.
Yeah.
Black kids?
Yeah. Right.
Now,
Listen, I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just
Right.
trying to understand.
Right, no, I know you're trying to understand. I want to give you an answer that's complete.
Mm.
So I'm going to say no, not black kids. Not to say that it doesn't happen.
I'm sure it happens somewhere,
Right,
but,
right.
but a lot of them on the floor too.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot
not-
back in the day, they
But
back
now
in the-
nowadays no kids, even black kids, folks are smart. You know what they do? Because I handle also child custody cases and family court cases, ugly cases. Mom is at home making dinner. She promised her young daughter, who's 9, listen, I'll take you to the mall and get you something. But mom said we won't cook, so the daughter throws a temper tantrum. And mom said, listen, don't be doing that. When I finish cooking, we'll go to the mall. You know what the young girl does? She calls 911 and makes a false complaint against her mother, saying her mother threatened her with a knife. Police show up. They talk to the mom. What are you doing here? Got a call. You're threatening your daughter with a knife. What?
Remember what you said?
And guess what happens?
Mental illness?
Guess what happens?
That's a problem.
Guess what happens? Mom gets arrested.
This is real world. This is
Real world, it's a
happening.
case.
Yeah, spread.
Mom gets arrested. So you're not in the same position you were as we were.
Yeah,
Because
this
these
is
kids,
something new
and
too.
this is not the only case I've had.
Yeah.
And where the school will call the parent and say, listen, your kid's off the wall. You got to do something. So mom, thinking she's disciplining, will take to the belt. Listen, you got to listen to your teacher. You can't be jumping around in the class. Guess what happens? Kid goes to school, got maybe some whelps, or shows them off. Let's say mom was, he had a long sleeve, but he decides he wants to show the teacher something because he didn't complete his homework. Now the school has a responsibility. They call the police. Mom gets arrested. So it's not the same like we were. So you can't necessarily just give instruction. I expect so and so. You can take that attitude. I don't know what kind of kid you're dealing with.
I can only speak for my family.
Of course.
So that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And they know better. So
Yes.
if you don't have no control, let's say you might be a parent, but your whole ways and actions and lifestyle don't reflect it. They don't have any respect for you. But if you're handling your business, they know what to
But I
do.
guess what I'm saying, and that's what I prefaced the other questions with, has the world changed? The world has changed.
Yeah,
And so parenting has changed.
yeah,
For some people.
yeah.
Yeah, but you're like a grandfather now. So
But when I was a father, that was the law.
again, that's a different generation.
I'm
Your
just saying.
daughters are mature women.
And my granddaughters,
Hmm.
because of what I gave to my daughters, my grandkids, no way. They ain't.
So your daughters are raising your
That's right.
Yeah.
your grand.
Yeah, my son
same
and daughter
way.
are doing the same
That's
thing
right.
that I did.
Okay.
And the discipline,
Okay.
taking them out for sports,
Okay.
not talking to them, but when they get a little too antsy,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be on the phone with my daughter and you get, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
And, it says, put that down now. So the discipline is, because they'll try you.
Of course.
The kids will try you. So when do you not baby them? Because even my son, I never let him talk like a little baby. I never talked to him like, oh, come over. No, I said, come here. And when he got older at 15, I seen him tell his cousin, his cousin started talking like a little baby, and my son told him, hey, stop talking like that. So it's really constant, and he's still with him today, because his cousin has gone through more things than my son has ever seen, but he admires my son to the point where he likes the way he's talking to him and dealing with him, And my son now is director of, Ford, motor company. So he himself has grown up to be something, and it's funny now, and you probably see this in your children, but I was asking my son, because I said, boy, I feel like I'm doing what my son does, moving and walking and everything. And I called him up and I said, you ever feel like, I feel like I'm doing things like you? And he says, no, Dad, I picked up your mannerism. So your children will pick up the way you are, no matter how you are. They'll pick it up in some form. They'll either decide, I pick up my mother's thing, I can't say my dad, and to be honest, I've seen my dad maybe 2 or 3 times, if that many. But I remember coming downstairs as an adult, walking into a mirror, and I swear, my whole face turned into my dad. And I put my head down in shame. Because one thing I said, I don't want to be like him, whatever that was. But I did not want to be. And my first daughter, she's from another a woman, that I told you her, we on the
Yes.
phone, we're good friends. But it took a long time for me to get back into my daughter's life. And she wrote me about 10 years after I was dealing with her and said, you've been in my life longer than you've been out. And now we communicate and we talk. But the mother said that she had changed her life the minute I came into her life from boyfriends. And one of the main things was me taking her out for lunch, opening the door, talking to her. So this is what I guess they want now. Well, that's what I want. My daughter, through my marriage, always looked for, he said, which she is married to a man that is, he said, he's got your demeanor, Dad. So it is a reflection, you know, we are a reflection to the next generation. So what's happening now, I think it's lack of good reflection. And I'm not saying, you know, of the structure of a husband and a wife, the structure has been completely apart. They always somewhat blame welfare in terms of saying, you know, because my daughter, first daughter, lives in the Bronx. She lives in, you know, that kind of, but the thing is with the welfare system is that man who may want to come back and live can't do that. Not as long as you're on welfare. Because once they do, they'll take that away. So it's like, did they know how, you know, how to separate the house structure? Because it's you don't see it that much.
Well, the question is, it sounds like what you guys are saying is that you raised your children the way your parents raised you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much. Me,
I
That's
would
exactly.
say, I mean, for me personally, I would say from a standpoint of morals, probably,
Yeah.
but from a standpoint of discipline,
Discipline.
no,
yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
not.
and I can't say that because I didn't have a dad, but
Right. But
on
your
my
mother,
block,
on your mother.
my mother, yes, but the men on the block were like you probably say we wish we were today.
Uh-huh.
They took me camping.
I see.
I was like almost their second. I went out with my neighbors. I mean my neighbors. I went to their barbecues with their family. Their cousins were almost my cousins. So he gave me a job. So it was the men back then that I don't see today
I see.
that
I
became.
know what he's saying. 'Cause
Yeah.
I grew up in Bed-Stuy. On Burgers, on our block, we had elders. And when we were young, man, they taught us at 12 years old, they took us up on the roof because if you know the buildings, you can go from one roof to the next roof and be in another building.
Yeah.
So they would take us up on the roof and they would tell us, first of all, in the 70s, the history. They gave us jewels and they would always tell us, man, this is what's going to work for you if you want to be successful. So you had that mentorship.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Even if your father
Right,
wasn't
right.
around. you know?
Unknowingly, it wasn't
Yeah.
like they were meaning to be,
Right.
but they also let me be part of their life because of my demeanor. I wasn't a bad kid where they was trying to change me. I was just a young man that they said, hey, I think this kid can hang out with us, you know. So they gave me a lot of jobs, and not just blacks, whites also.
But to Al's point, he says that, you know, in terms of following along the same line as your parents, in terms of morals, yes, you would have duplicated that in terms of your children, but not as far as discipline
Right.
is concerned.
Yes, and you just mentioned something that you talk about the elders. And I put that back to what I said before is that we are the elders now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what has happened is I think the elders are not in the neighborhood anymore.
No. Right.
We have moved.
Right.
We have moved out.
Why is that?
Why? Because that's what it is to be successful. You have to move out.
But
You have to get.
you just said that there were elders around when you were growing up.
Yeah,
So
that's
they know
different.
about
Yeah.
it.
They lived in the
They
They
lived
lived
in the
in- yeah,
neighborhood.
lived in the neighborhood.
The elders
This is the
stayed.
successful elders when we were growing up.
Yeah,
lived
they
and
lived,
stayed.
but
Yeah.
we felt
All
they were
their
successful.
fathers.
We
Right.
looked at them and
Right,
said they
right.
must be successful because they're
Right,
talking
right.
to
Yeah.
us.
They
They're
got a
relating
job.
to
I've been a
us.
bus driver,
They got a
went to the
house.
post office,
Yeah.
we're on the house.
But
right.
unfortunately now, not unfortunately, because I'm not gonna say unfortunate,
Okay.
is that in the black community,
Yeah.
you work. You might have a two household working. Once they get so much money, they're moving. So a lot of the positives that are in the neighborhood
Right.
move out, and then you're not left with that, and we don't always come back. That's the other thing.
But I think
That-
the
that we don't-
responsibility is if you move and let's say if you move to an affluent area,
Right.
it might not be as necessary, but not everybody can go there.
Right.
But wherever you go, you either do that knowledge and see what there's somewhere you can be effective in
It's
that new
easy.
environment.
It's easy to say that. I think that it should happen.
Yeah, you can.
And I don't raise no hat. I do no toast or anything like that. Is that I live in the suburbs, nice neighborhood, but my businesses are in the inner city, and I try. You have to emulate what you want. Sometimes is that, and to a fault, I could have probably done a lot more in business, but I to your, when you said something funny, I used to work the register. I used to work the fry station. I used to do sandwiches, and I did that so the young people can see what I'm doing. And if you show them that what you're doing is not beneath them,
Yeah, exactly.
they're going to, and you're going to instill a lot of confidence and pride.
Yeah.
And
This is
I'm
where it
not.
starts.
I'm an elder from this. I am an elder, I guess. And if I could,
You're OG.
you go OG boy, OG. If I could just, the best thing for me is that being in business. We're not talking about that, but being in business for 30 years is that when I see people in their 20s and their 30s, how you doing, Mr. King? Coming back, saying hello, and respecting. Now you have some that just walk by you, and you got to turn around and make sure. But what has happened? I just go back again to we have as a people, we want to be successful. We want to make money. Let's we can't fool ourselves here. Life is about making money. We can talk about a lot of other things that we want to do and this and that, but it's a lot of it is about making money to be able to do what you want to do and provide. But we have to make sure that while we're doing that, we're still not forgetting about where we came from. And that has happened more than it should have.
Funny you say that because now, kids that I had 10, 15 years ago, I could be in the bowling alley, in the gym, in the grocery store, in the gas station. I hear those familiar words. Yo, Coach Ficklen, that's you? Hey, that's Coach Ficklen.
Good feeling, bro.
You know what I mean? They come over to you and they say, hey, man, hey, I'm doing well. They say, how you doing, Coach? And then they say, hey, man, I remember what you said.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. That's impactful, man.
Right.
So you don't even know what you said, but there was something.
You know what I mean? It's like that's the payback because the salary is definitely not. When they getting kids come back and they tell you, because if they don't like you and you didn't impact their lives in a positive way, they see you like you said, they're going this way. They're not going.
You know, I teach drums, and you know, and I have a lot of. I mean, I've taught over hundreds of kids. You know, and even in Malvern, white kids, and the parents actually started bringing them to me for mentoring, and I don't know if it was where I worked at, you know, or whatever they feel, you know, and I watched these kids grow up, and I lived here for 38 years, and I see the kids on the block, some of them are still there, and one kid, he was just talking to me, he got his daughter with him, and he actually said to me, he left my car, I was in my car, and then he came back and said, you did right by your kids. So kids see certain things, and I'm even mentoring a young man now who's now a math teacher, you know, and he started when I had him when he was 8 years old. But I really got him again when he came back for drum lessons at 21. And, you know, I'm so easy to talk to, but I'm going to tell you the deal. You know, I'm going to tell you straight up, yo, you got to work. Why I got to work? And you tell them why they got to work. You can't talk that way. You got to look out for that person. You know, you can't hang around that crowd. I was doing that when I was working in the jail. Inmates came to me and said, Mr. D, can you get so-and-so in your detail? Because they're having problems with the other officers. You know, and I would check out to see what kind of problem it really was. But if I saw, okay, this kid can't handle it, I would trade off, like, I hate to use the word slavery, but I would trade off an inmate that could work with them better, take this one in, and work with him, you know, and all it takes you to do is to not be strict. I was not a strict CO, unless I had to be. Other than that, hey, God, you're here, you made this decision. I remember inmates came into jail. I had the receiving room, and they came in like Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, and the kid was walking in like, yeah, you know, with this bad attitude. And I said, yo, come here. I said, dude, don't go in that cell block and that, because we have a holding pen. It's about 30 inmates in there. I said, don't go in there because they're gonna smell you. They can smell a punk. Number one. And next thing is, don't use the toilet. That's the worst thing you can do in that
Why is
thing.
that?
What? You ate a couple of burritos before you got arrested, and you go in that little, and it's an open cell, man, and you go in there with 30 inmates and stink up that place, there's gonna be one guy that's gonna tell you, yo man, it was effed up what you just did. Now, if you have to talk back to that person, you don't know that person will knock you out. You know, so these are things I would just mentor. I don't want to see fights. You know,
But it sounds like what you guys are saying is not that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not that you go out and search
No.
for
They come
these
to
young
you.
folks.
No,
to-
it's
like building a
Yeah,
field.
if they're in your space, it
yeah,
sounds
I
like.
wish there was a place where you know they would see a bunch of. And I've been in the school system as well. There's one in Brooklyn that take the bad kids from the worst schools and put them in Brooklyn. I got one kid to pull his pants up. Because, and the only way I get their attentions, unfortunately, is tell them I worked at Rikers. So that's supposed to be a big thing. You
They
know,
want to hear war stories?
they want to hear war stories of Rikers, but I tell them in a sense to say, you don't want to come there. You don't want to go to jail. If I even go to jail, I hope they give me like 2 years before I got to go. You know how they do that? Well, you're going to be going. I ain't going to take every karate class I could possibly take before I go, because it's going to be a problem. We even had the Central Park Six in there, and one kid that went in there, and I knew it was a Latin King, and I was just talking to the Latin King about that because he was in jail around the same time, and he put his head down, man, because he was one of them that physically had an altercation with him when he came to jail. You know, and I
Do
was
they
like,
do they still do visits at Rikers Island? Where you like?
Scared straight.
Do they do visits? I mean,
Yeah,
do they bring young people there to see how it really is?
the Scared Straight, which is ridiculous.
Not scared straight,
Yeah,
but just
yeah.
do you have
Um,
you don't have high school?
I haven't
students come?
I haven't seen that at Rikers as much.
They really should.
But I don't believe in the way they get the inmates to put them against the wall and yell and
No, not the
scream.
wall. Just to
Yeah,
walk
but
through.
that's
Just
what they
to,
used
just
to
to
do.
walk through. Just to
Yeah,
go into
Would
go
that, would
into
that
jail
even
cell.
matter? I mean, are they
What?
impacted by that? I mean, because it's.
Yes, I think they need to come and let the inmates talk to them. The
So,
inmates
so
need to
look,
talk to them.
again,
Yeah.
is that young person that's not the leader, the one that's really don't want to be there.
Yeah, yeah. That's
you
the
might
one
be
you
able,
want
you
to
might be
talk
able to
to.
impact them.
That's the one you want to talk to and let him tell you. Because I had an inmate like that didn't belong there. He just hung out with the wrong crowd. That's all it takes. One time with the wrong person. Matter of fact, my friend who's deceased, coming home from a party, he had his party shoes on. His boys drive up, and this is when they was robbing that gas station on Springfield and the Conduit. You know, all the time. They was robbing it all the time. They come home, they're ready to rob it. They pick him up, and he couldn't even take off his shoes because he couldn't get in the house to get his sneakers. And never did a robbery before in his life. Went there, robbed it. The detectives are right there just waiting. Got them all. The ones that always did a robbery put the shells in his pocket. He got the gun charge. Went upstate. Once you in jail, you're a different person. You know, you ain't coming out. You're not gonna come out the same. I got a friend did 15 years hanging out with, Supreme. You know, and that was changed his life. He's a different person.
Now, for those who don't know who Supreme is, you're going to have to educate us a little.
Well, I think Supreme, is one of them gang leaders out here, major. We had them all, anybody that was in the 5 boroughs, they were in Rikers. So I actually sat down with one of the Harlem gang guys. Nicest kid, just they're different. They get out in that street, he said, CO, if I have to break my brother's legs, I'm going to break them. Because if I don't break them, they're going to break my legs. So that's how the drug game is. Is once you in, you ain't getting out. Crips, Bloods, once you in, I know them all. One, I actually got a job, he's doing good, in another state. I don't even want to say that.
Sure.
But he's got a little bit of not a price on his head, but he can't, and his name was, I don't even want to say his name.
Well,
In case this podcast go out there like that, but he's doing good. I got him a job, and once that one job started, he kicked off and just kept going up. So even what you do, like you said, giving them that job and watching you work, you're a positive role model just because of what you do. I'm surprised you just don't sit down sometimes with the crew of your employees and have a conversation, because your impact would be extreme. What you've done, basketball, and now owning all of these, this is who they need to hear from. People like you. You know, have a little circle and you know, like us four in a place like that with young people. Matter of fact, you should have another podcast and bring those young people back on. If they are, but you know, like you said, we want the ones that are making a line. I can go this way or that way.
Right.
You know, you want to catch them before they go on the wrong side.
Well,
You know.
let me ask this, because we're going to have to, we're winding down a little bit. I've just enjoyed the conversation. It's been taken off very well. But I wanted to find out just a little bit, only because you guys are athletes. I just wanted to know, ask you earlier about, you know, have things have changed or how have they changed? The question becomes, has sports changed since you guys played?
Like sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot. Well, these guys who are in the limelight now, a lot of them are not, I should say, honest, because
What do you mean, not honest?
but they're just their abilities are not natural. All of them.
Mm.
They taking performance enhancing drugs, and I can say it because it's out there. Nobody don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I used to think sports was just pure, like we go to the park,
Right.
we play, we do this. But now you really don't know, and they starting to speak out on it now.
Mm-hmm.
The athletes themselves, you know. So to me, that's what it is. It's not always pure, like
Yeah.
it used to be. You know what I mean? Like Willie Mays, he didn't have to take, or Hank Aaron, they didn't have to take performance enhancing drugs, but the guys that came after them.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't blame them, man. Someone like my man said one time, if you could make $2 million, $4 million and be outstanding, you got to make a choice. You know what I mean? And sometimes you got to make that choice. Man. So to me, that's what's changed.
What I'm most happy about, but I guess I was born 50 years too early. But NIL, we were talking about it before during the break, is that anyone who might not know what that means, I'm just learning about it. It's where when you're in college and you can get money from endorsements or
yeah.
different companies.
Yep.
There are some student athletes, because they're still students, of course, but they're making $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. And the funny thing about that is that the NCAA and the coaches are complaining. I find that funny only that you look at these college coaches, they're making $5-10 million. They leave one school, go to another, get another $5-10 million, and they're complaining about these young kids making this money. I hope they make all the money they can. But as I said during the break, is that I wish that they would put in some type of trust fund, the money
Yeah.
into a trust fund.
Because you know the percentage of them going broke after retirement.
It is, but then again, there's a lot of successful, because we always hear that side, but I like to
Yeah.
always look at the flip side. There's a
Yeah.
lot of black, because I'm over here talking about black
Sure.
athletes that are very successful out there, that are doing well. The thing that happens is that not just the young people are spending that money, they forget about, they got paid that 37% or whatever it is, they got paid that state tax, they got to do whatever it is. It's the parents too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the uncle that thinks
Yeah.
that he knows what the best investment is
Yeah.
for him. That becomes a dilemma. You want to take care of your family, and you need to. You have to, and I think that you have a responsibility to do that. But they definitely should have some type of trust fund where they could put it into like 25, 28 years
Yeah.
old. But as far as for me, basketball changing, the athletes are more physically gifted, I feel. We all talk about, in the 80s, it was this, in the 70s, it was that. But when you talk about physical ability, you can't touch them.
Yeah.
I think that's what was it?
That's the same with music, though.
The technology.
I don't know, because they always say it was the milk something. You know what I'm saying?
That's happening. That's happening in music because I go all the way back to Baby Dobbs, who was one of the first drummers way back then, and stuff he's doing. I'd look at it and say, yeah, we know that was really. But these kids today, at 4 years old, are doing things that I could not even touch.
With the drums?
Yeah, unbelievable.
I think the training, man, across the board has become
Yes.
like so sophisticated.
Yes.
You know, I mean, parents are getting coaches for kids like this, personal coaches. I mean, they're doing the physical training. They're just, it's just a different level. I mean, I know in our generation, a lot of what we achieved, it was going to the park and playing, man, hours and hours of basketball.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you had like a dumbbell set, a barbell set.
Right, maybe.
But that was your exposure. You didn't have, man.
Yeah, monkey bars.
Yeah. You know, right. But you didn't have to Planet Hollywood and you know, these
Private trainers.
private
and-
trainers and these health clubs and all that.
You know, the medical
You would
field too is
It-
what's more.
it is.
Because the injuries back, like when
Mhm.
your brother played back, you know.
My brother played?
Your brother.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I'm just saying, I was speaking on injuries.
Yeah, we know that. Where was you? Open up another
I was
franchise.
right there getting it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you got hurt,
Right.
if you had the technology and medical,
You recovery.
you know what I mean? So that's another
faster.
Well, the only other thing I would just say is that this the 3-point shot has changed because there's a lot of that. ESPN is great, but this top 10 is going to kill people after a while because all the young kids on the playground, they want to do all these
Yeah,
moves.
yeah.
They got to be quiet. The young people got to be very careful because you said it before. Who was the last 2 MVPs? They came from overseas. These young kids from overseas are coming into the NBA and they're taking over. And why is that
I'm
happening?
really asking why.
It's hard for me to say because you got the center from Denver. His name is can't jump but this high, but you can't stop him.
That's amazing.
And the last thing I want them to do is start saying that it's intellectually, mentally they're better. I don't think it's that, but European players are more
Fundamentally sound.
fundamentally sound,
That's it.
definitely so, than NBA than American players, definitely so.
So how do you make the transition when your career is over to like?
Well, that's the person to ask.
No, you're asking that question of everyone.
No, exactly, because you're aging. Where, like I keep saying, you're
Oh,
a certain
yeah.
age. How do you transition?
We're just getting better. We're fermenting better. We're
I'm-
getting better with age.
What I want to know, he said he's retired. I want to know what that means.
Yeah, me too.
I'm afraid of that.
Yeah, I'm retired also.
You're retired too.
Yeah.
That not afraid, but it's what is retirement? Meaning that
Yeah,
you are just doing what you want to do,
yeah.
but you do nothing from a business perspective.
Yeah, I think retirement means you just left that job and now you're able to get funds in to do the business part because my whole music situation has
Oh, so you
been-
still doing business somehow.
I do business, but I can do this because of the previous job I had, where I can now at least pay certain bills, and I was doing it while I was working too. So it was like a transition into doing that. So retirement, yeah, it is. It's an old school word, which is where you think you're supposed to sit on the couch and use the remote control.
Right, not
and that's
that.
the worst thing you can do for your
But I want to hear from the old chief. You're retired,
Well, see, yeah, I'm retired and I don't have a job.
right? That's the point.
You're on the clock, right?
Yes,
Yeah. See, so retirement
on the clock meaning
meaning you have a schedule.
no.
So your stores, you don't have to be there.
Not
No.
not as much. No.
All right,
No.
as an owner, you don't have to. Right.
Not
So
in,
he's
in,
retired.
in before, yes, but no. You have paperwork, you have admin stuff, you have different things you have to do.
Okay.
But I think when we say retired, meaning that I wake up and I say to myself, what?
Well,
What do you do?
each,
And it's not a bad thing
no, each,
because you earned it.
each day is yours. I mean, the night before, you figure out what do I need to do. I mean, I'm a homeowner,
Mhm.
so that's responsibility,
Mhm.
right? I spend a certain amount of time regarding fitness. All right, so I do that. I have hobbies. It's kind of like you put together a retirement lifestyle, which is different for everybody. I mean, whatever your interests are, if you have grandkids, if you have, brothers or sisters, siblings, So yeah, you just it takes a while to put together a lifestyle that is, to me, satisfying,
But you said-
and that it incorporates.
You said old school word retirement. I think you should.
Because you're retired too, aren't you?
Yeah, for 1 year.
1 year. So
1 year.
how's it been?
It's great, man. I'm my own boss. And for me, I don't have to work, so I prepared myself.
You wake up the same time of day?
No, see, I did the same thing I did when I was working because that's just in me. I
I wake up still the same time.
I put myself, but see now I put myself ahead of everything else because I feel like if I'm not healthy and strong, nothing else matters. So I take care of me first, then all the other things. I'm not gonna say what I'm doing, but I got some things that I'm into right now. I'm not gonna say nothing, but you're gonna look for me in the future.
So you're still doing business. You're still so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I don't know if I can know, it's a gentleman I grew up with. He has a talk show on 905fm.net. And before I was a call-in person. But in later on this month, going into July, I'm going to be co-hosting that, The Catalyst, with him.
Okay.
So I'm in the spoken word. I sent you the poetry. I'm going to start publishing. I'm going to publish a audio poetry, audio book of poetry. So I got some things I'm doing, man, that keeps me busy. But the number one thing for me, I don't care what nobody says, health and wellness, man.
Yep.
None of this means nothing if you can't enjoy it
Yeah.
at your maximum.
So what about that? I mean, because African American men tend to die earlier than other.
I guess it's a
ethnic
choice.
groups.
It's a choice.
You
I
keep
mean,
saying things are
it
choiceless.
is.
Yeah.
So
If you
but
choose not to do anything, you won't.
well, I mean, if we've got the ones where prostate cancers in our community, and there's diabetes and high blood pressure and all these other.
And all of those things are choices of habits that
Neglecting
either-
yourself.
like if I go to the doctor in the next month and he says, "Hey, you're borderline," which I was borderline on my A1C, and all you got to do is I changed it. It went back down. So if it's going back up and down, that means I have some control.
Yeah.
But I could have raised it by constantly doing negative things that would make it go up higher.
Listen, it's a lifestyle. It's not a fad.
Yeah.
If you really focus in on yourself, you start when you're young, and you don't stop unless you get injured or something happens. You focus on yourself, your health. That's important, man.
I don't think prostate cancer though is like a choice.
Oh no, I'm saying
And I mean,
that's just a-
certain diseases and illnesses, man, they just, hereditary genetics. And then once you are diagnosed, then it's about managing and treating.
Yeah,
for some people, yeah.
But I think the other thing is that you're right. I mean, prostate cancer is not a choice. But if the man is going to getting regular checkups, at least you can monitor.
Well,
Yeah.
Right?
I don't
Early
know.
prevention.
What happened to Biden? I mean, you're telling me.
I'm not gonna say. I think they were hiding that.
But that's what I'm saying.
You're a president.
I
You're
mean,
getting checkups.
Yeah.
He's
I would
getting-
hope. I would hope.
You would hope
So
he's
bring
getting
checkup.
by
Yes,
the
right.
top doctors.
Right. Then that's so if that's the case, then that's what black men are. Black men are like Biden. Stage 4? What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
That means you
But
were
a
you
lot-
checking like when we got to stage 1, 2, and 3?
But a lot of black men don't get physicals.
And that's my point here. Shouldn't they? Shouldn't they?
They choose not
Because
to.
you talked about longevity. How do we get longevity of African American men in our community if they're not going to and willing to get these checkups?
You have to get checkups. It's all right.
When you get a pain or ache, most men have never. That's
But that's what
when
it's
I
supposed
had
to
to get older. I mean, I had both my hips were resurfaced. I was having pain, and I'm like, maybe I'm just, So my daughter, who's just got her PhD, and she's a nurse, she said, "Daddy, I was in her house, I almost fell." She said, "You got to do something about that." So she found a gentleman in South Carolina, and I went to see him. He said, "We can do it." I said, "You mean replacement?" No. He said, "This is resurfacing. Less invasive. Go in, leave the same day." He fixed one 6 months later because that was fixed. The other one went bad. So I have both of them done now.
But what is resurfacing? What is
Resurfacing it's not total replacement. There's something you put in. I can't explain it to you. I didn't care.
Okay.
He told me you can run a marathon when you go through your rehab and everything is good.
So you have pens in you? Is
It's
that-
like I can't even describe it. I have a card that I carry around because if I fly
Mhm.
and I go through that thing, it's gonna go off.
Okay.
So you have metal in you.
It's not metal. It's something new that they use now,
Okay.
and it's like nothing happened to me. I'm just like I was before. I can play, I can run, I can jump,
Mm-hmm.
and I had my thyroid removed on the left side because my daughter noticed something. Usually, if you have thyroid, it comes out the side of your neck.
Yeah.
This was going down inside my chest. I never knew because the body adapts. So you go in there and they took an MRI, and you could see it. So she went in, she cut me across the throat. I said, "You gotta cut me across the throat." Yeah, she took it out. So now I'm good. But again, if you ignore those things,
Yeah.
that's when it'll get you. So
And your significant other needs to stay on you on both sides,
yeah, yeah.
men and women. I think that if you see your spouse having issues, you have to make sure that you stay on them.
Absolutely.
If you see something, say something.
Absolutely, absolutely, and just
But do you,
annoy them.
but do you go on your own annually? I mean, do you go?
I go annually.
Oh yes.
I mean, is that at least
know my
annually?
doctor.
I'm saying
And
at
I'm
least.
wondering, is it an economic issue because I have a medical plan? I say, hey, but maybe some don't have that medical plan, and maybe that's why they don't, go to the doctor.
You can go to the clinic.
I think black men are really
afraid of
don't,
doctors?
don't like to go to doctors. That's been since my father's time.
I don't like going
From
either.
what I know, from what I see.
It's just like we don't ask for directions.
Yeah, you're right about that.
You don't have to now with the technology.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So here's the question. It's next to the last question, which is, you guys obviously follow basketball. So Draymond Green was kind of, spotlight was on him because he didn't want to be seen as an angry black man. During one of the games, he kind of got a little aggressive, and he took issue with his perspective. The media was kind of trying to create him as this angry black man, and then Mark Wilbon, the commentator on I think ESPN. He was kind of taking pride. He was acknowledging and accepting the fact that he was an angry black man. So my question is, were you guys ever angry black men?
I mean, when you say, I'm trying to figure out what angry meaning you hate people.
Well, it's your definition right now. I mean, the moniker is always angry black men. That the world perceives black men as angry. Is that so, or is that not so?
I would say I have never been an angry black man.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay.
No.
No.
And maybe I haven't been in certain situations where that it put me in.
And do you mean like blaming the other culture for the way you are in position?
Or aggressive, or
Aggressive
in terms of
like
behavior
road
and-
rage? Do you?
I'll take that.
you know,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
no. I have this thing, again, reading from the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Good book.
And one of the subjects in there was to try to. The man was on a train. His kids were like all over the place inside the train. And, this guy's like, how come this guy's not controlling his kid? He's just sitting there doing nothing. So he decided to get up and question him. And he said, hey, man, you got your kids running all over this train and making noise and this. And he said, huh? He said, oh, man, I'm sorry. I just came back from the hospital. Their mother died. And, I'm just trying to figure. So even when I do see a road rage and it's not, or somebody doing something, I always say, I hope he gets there safe. Because we don't know where he's really going.
I'm gonna cut you off then.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
on the road.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be like, I want to ride with you.
yeah, but
You don't
really,
get upset.
I do.
You don't get upset.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I don't say something. I might say that was a stupid move.
Right.
But I don't get like where I'm going to catch up with them.
Oh, no,
and
no,
start,
that's-
Well,
Definitely
let me,
not.
let me ask the question a different way. Has anyone ever accused you of being angry black men?
No, no.
No?
No.
You don't really know what's happened to those people.
Yeah, exactly.
circumstances,
Yeah. You
you
don't
get
know what
upset
they're
with
doing,
you.
what's on their mind.
Yeah.
And that again worked for me in jail too.
Okay.
Not to try to judge their anger and not know what's really going on with them. I hear these guys on the phone and they're calling home to their wife and JoJo's answering. And you can hear them getting upset over the
Yes.
phone like, who are you? And whatever's going on there. So this guy's gonna be upset. I've seen guys come back from court and they're getting ready for suicide. Their whole demeanor changed from the time they went out and the time they come back. So you have to kind of like this, and you just can't go and say, yo, what's wrong? Because they're not going to tell you. You have to just kind of go in there and just feel it out. Sometimes inmates tell me what's going on with you.
Sure. All right, one last question. What life lessons have you learned?
Stay out of jail.
Well, I would, for me personally, just to know that it's very important to pay attention and listen. A lot of people don't really know how to listen. They just wait for you to finish talking so they can have something to say.
Yep, that's in that book also, and I'll just stress this: it works in the same book that when somebody's really having a problem, let them say the sentence and repeat what they just said, and it'll bring out that whole story where they solve their own problem.
I would say, how would I say it? Is that it's not always as bad as you think it is.
Yeah,
That's in personal and in business, that sometimes you just let so many things affect you, but you try to learn over time that it's really not that bad. It's really not as bad as you think it is. You know, because stress is a killer.
yep.
Stress is a killer. If you let things just stress you out all the time, and I've been stressed in my life, absolutely. I'm not saying I'm immune to that, but I think I've learned to really relax a little bit more.
Yeah, and I've been to so many doctors, and at the end of the day, a lot of them just say, "Oh, and meditate." What? You know, so I do, but it's funny to hear them say that this, and I do it in the libraries with kids. You know, at the last time when I finished up, and I just did a 6-week program, they were all, in the beginning they were a little rough, but at the end they were looking for it. And I watched the kids go like this, but meditation does really work if you learn how to, really do it.
Yeah.
Just do it in the morning.
I used to tell my students, man, instead of complaining and whining about it, try to find a solution.
Find a solution.
Just
Yep.
try to find
There's a solution to every problem.
And for me, it's be yourself. Don't try to be somebody who you
Yeah.
aren't.
Yeah.
Just follow your gut and just go with it.
I did try to be like Willis Reed. But
That means you're gonna knock out the whole team.
Not just be able to jump.
But I just want to end with saying I have to give props here. I mean, we the three of us, we went to high school together, and now to see you sitting up here having a podcast, I'm not giving no BS, and being in the legal field, that means a lot. That says a lot. To
That's
see
why
that-
actually,
that's being successful.
what made you become an
Congratulations.
attorney? And when she told me from
Congratulations.
14 years old, so that's a study right there. And you kind of fell over it in a sense that you said you had to do a research or a paper on one particular thing, and you liked the way you had to somewhat debate. And you decided to take it to where you are right now.
Oh, I could see it. We probably, because he was Don Juan in high school, but she was very quiet. Stayed to herself.
Let me tell you,
Just
junior
did what she had to do,
in junior
which is
high,
good.
I told
Oh,
the
y'all go
gentleman-
back to junior high school, okay?
Tell me, said, she's talked about you. I'm like, me? I said, she was the brilliant one. She was the motivator. She set the standard. I'm like, I used to play basketball when I'm like, okay. But she getting all the grades, man. I can play, but she getting all the grades. You know what I mean?
Well, she ran track too now. So.
Did you play sports in high school?
Yeah, I played basketball, I ran track, and played
Okay.
volleyball.
All right.
Yeah.
I never knew that. Because I never came to any of the games.
No, you didn't.
You probably played before we did or after we did or something. I don't know.
Everyone left after we played.
But
But it was good being here.
Yeah.
What you do know is when we leave and we hit Hillside Avenue, just look up. And what does the sign say? Renee Myatt?
Yep.
Yes.
No, forget that. Watch that bus that goes by
Yeah,
and look at that big sign. I was just one.
Yeah.
Hold it. Hey, that's my attorney.
Wait a minute, you got one of them things on the
The
bus?
big one, not a little one.
Oh, wow.
It's the length of the bus.
The whole
I
bunch.
was looking for him to wrap the whole bus with it. Yeah, and she, you can see her personality because it's not just her. It's the whole team. It's the
That's
whole-
what it takes.
The whole basketball team.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Well,
Well, listen, you guys have been extremely gracious. I really, really appreciate this. We ran on Charlie way too long. My staff is like, when are they but this has been wonderful. I mean, we probably
good being
get
here.
we probably didn't get to half the questions we needed to, but the questions we did were impactful and thoughtful. And I appreciate you guys being honest. And I know you traveled from Jersey, from Georgia, Hollis, not too far. Everybody,
I want to sound like it now with you guys.
but I really, really appreciate it. This has been wonderful, wonderful. And I hope somebody learned something from today.
I do. Yeah.
And I think they have. I think if they listen and they're paying attention, they will. So I want to thank the audience for spending some time with us today, listening to these gentlemen share their experiences and their wisdom with you. And I hope somebody takes something from this episode. And thanks again for listening for Brothers Ear. All right.
That's all right.